aside for the EMS budget that approximates his $3 million budget, so it gets us where we need to be. So with that being said, if there's no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to take action on this.
Motion to take action.
So that's a motion to approve, presumably. Okay. And I actually had John's hand second
Okay.
down there, Jeff. So I have a motion by Joe to approve ordinance 2022-09, and I have John's second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. That motion carries 7-0. And with that, I'll close the public hearing. So Stephen, you're welcome to stay around, or if you want to wait and come back later for your budget. Okay. Whatever you're comfortable with. All right, so with that, let's jump right into the budget hearing for the 2023 budget.
I like it so dark in here.
We're going to start, as we traditionally do, with the courts, so that they can get back upstairs and to their business, beginning with Circuit Court, which is tab number 4. Judge Moeller.
Okay, thank you. Really only two things to note in the budget as far as changes. Everything else is flat. If you look at 0347, which is pauper attorneys, did ask for an increase there, and that's in direct relation to notice we got from the Public Defender Commission. If you remember, we are now part of the Public Defender Commission, where we receive reimbursements. We started that in 2018 with what I just submitted for our second quarter of 2022. That'll be a total reimbursement to the county of $496,000. So that's been a really good program. We want to continue to do that. As part of that program, we have to comply with their regulations. One of them is, as of January 1, they are increasing their required rate for pauper attorneys from $90 to $100 per hour.
Okay.
So we have to stay in compliance with that to be eligible for that program. So Judge Hunter and I talked about that. I know my budget, I think his does too. We factored in basically a 10% increase to accommodate for that rate increase that is going to be required for us to stay in the Public Defender Commission program. So in mine, you'll see pauper amount went from $150,000 to $165,000. Obviously, that'll increase the amount we receive back as we continue in the program, but that was why, and that's effective January 1.
Okay.
The only other thing then for mine, as far as any changes, would be in section 1, which is payroll, factored in the suggested 10% increases for 2 of my staff. I put in an additional $1,350, trying to get them up to a higher level. Both have considerable experience in the legal profession. As we see wages in every facet going up, I want to make sure I keep that staff.
Say that again.
Yep.
You caught me mid-highlight there.
Yep.
Who went up 1350?
I'm asking for an additional $1,350 for 2 of my staff, which would be 12 and 13.
Okay.
Both of those have prior legal experience working elsewhere. I want to make sure I keep them. And so I thought this would be the time to try to get that up to that higher level. With that, in overtime, which is number 21, I did not factor in a 10% raise there. In fact, I've not added in any cost of living increases for the last couple years there, so I left that flat from last year. If the budget requires it, to get that extra $1,350 for each, which would be $2,700, I would propose taking it out of the overtime, reduce the overtime by the $2,700. I can make it work if we have to do that. I just want to try to get that extra for staff, and I can adjust my overtime if needed. Because we've been able to keep it pretty much the same or no increase needed. Everything else for my budget is the same as last year.
Okay. Any questions for the judge?
No, I don't.
And,
And
you know, just,
I know we always get a question on, in category 3, account 1, which is preserve and wraparound. That has stayed the same for a number of years. About half of that each year basically January 1 goes as a match for CASA. And so that helps fund our CASA program, which is my other budget. So about half of that right off the bat goes to match the grant we received for CASA. That amount in the grant then funds CASA completely.
Okay.
The rest of that, at the end of the year, I'm using to, I can use it throughout the year for a number of things. For juvenile-related expenses, we are typically at the end of the year giving or helping probation and community corrections with juvenile accounts that have not been paid.
Okay.
So it's all, in essence, juvenile-related, but a big chunk of it goes to CASA to match our grant.
Okay. I want to step back and make a statement I usually make every year, but I really want to do it for Joe's benefit, but just to say that, you know, this first reading of the budget, typically we just let the department heads walk through any changes or things that deserve explanation or of note for us. We don't really usually dive in to make any cuts or changes unless it's something that the department head says, hey, in the meantime, I've changed my mind and you can go ahead and change A or B, so. Okay, so nothing probably of particular note in the CASA grant, is there? Just
CASA's all the same.
Okay. Okay. Okay, appreciate those explanations.
That's it for me.
All right, you're welcome to, of course, stay if you need to.
I'll wait and see if
Yeah.
there's anything else that ties in. but-
Okay, so let's move to Superior Court and Judge Hunter, which is tab 22.
And I will note real quickly before it goes to Judge Hunter, the number I gave you for what we've received back from Public Defender Commission does not include his capital case. Those are
Okay.
submitted separately. He takes care of all of those. We received those reimbursements back also. So what I have given you is just
Just
the
circuit,
normal.
is that circuit and Superior, but just the normal? Okay,
Correct. So he receives additional amount because he submits those separately.
great, okay. Judge Hunter,
All right, good morning.
good morning.
Just for the benefit of all the council members, some are new, some have been around for a while. I just want to explain the distinction between the two courts. Both courts are on the third floor. Both courts have what's called general jurisdiction, and that means we can preside over essentially anything. By virtue of some statutes, there are some minor differences in what we do. Judge Muller's court handles exclusively the juvenile docket. My court handles exclusively the small claims docket, and then also by agreement, we handle different types of cases, and then we split up some cases. It's a complicated way we do that, but for example, I handle all the traffic court cases, which would include infractions as well as what you would think of as operating while intoxicated and other types of cases. So, but both courts have general jurisdiction. In the world of staffing our courts, we are blessed to have staff that has been with us for quite some time. They bring to the table institutional knowledge that is hard to match, and we value their work. We want to keep them compensated in a way that they don't go to other places, and with their skills, they have the capability to do that. We think they like working with us, but there is always a limit when it comes to financial compensation. So we have put in, both of us, for our existing court reporters, a request for some additional funds. And I think, Judge Mueller, you mentioned it was approximately $1,300 per year. And part of that is, I identified that I have an office manager that earns just approximately $1,300 more than one of the court reporters who's been with us for 10 years. And it's time, and quite frankly, the skills of the court reporter exceed that of the office manager. And she's making less. And this creates a bit of a problem for us. And, so at some level, we have to recognize we have to preserve the human resources. I do understand, based on a survey that I responded to, that obviously you're looking at salaries. But for a long time, the only thing that we have seen are increases based on inflationary considerations. And when you get an employee that gets up to 10 years of service, there has to be some recognition that either in terms of performance performance or institutional knowledge, or however you want to phrase it. They are worth more than a court reporter that comes in year one. And there's no question about that. And I bring that up because part of my budget is to request that a court reporter, which was a part-time court reporter, become a full-time court reporter. And I know 2 years ago I came to this council and I asked for a full-time court reporter, and I think Alan, basically, if you'll allow me to paraphrase you from 2 years ago, we're not sure we can do that, but we'll try to meet you halfway. If we can get part-time, and then at some point move it to full-time, we can talk about that. So, there's no promises, of course, but there was a concept in play a couple of years ago that there was recognition that there's pressure in the courts, there's an outlet that needs to happen, and that is in human resources. And so I'm asking for you to make the part-time court reporter a full-time court reporter for me this year. Other big change, and pardon me, that would show up, I believe, as line 18 for personal services, so that's where you'll see that from. Okay, now, the other changes in my budget, and the big ones, are the pauper defense fees. 1 year ago, when I came to this budget meeting, I had prepped a budget in June, and didn't have my crystal ball with me to know that we'd have a horrific death in August that would create a death penalty case. And so I had seen, when I prepared the budget in June of last year, that I had an ability to reduce the pauper defense budget because we had this sort of pad of money that we could use to fill the pauper defense fees. That obviously, I'm in the midst where I've asked for an increase, as Judge Mueller said, he said 165. I think I put 160.
Correct.
That was just an error in my part. I meant to put 165, but whatever, 160. That's what I put in it. It's what's been advertised. And that's to meet the needs of defense counsel, payments on pauper defense cases, criminal cases that are the non-capital murder case. Then I put in a separate line item for the capital murder case and asked for $200,000. And so, you may have some questions about where the capital murder case is and what the steps are and so forth, and I'd be glad to answer those. I don't want to dive into that too much because you've got timing considerations, but I'm happy to give you the information you're looking for. So, in terms of the capital murder case, it does not have a trial date set yet. I initially told counsel that I would have assign a trial date, be approximately 6 weeks in length, and it would be in the fall of 2022. I don't see that happening. I see it more happening now, and I haven't even told Mr. Sommer this, probably in February of 23. And that's based on the fact that there are some issues that need to get in front of the court that are pretrial issues, and those issues need to happen probably within the next 6 to 9 months. Those issues can change the character of the death penalty case significantly, but they need to get in front of me, and then I'll take the facts and make a determination at that point. I'm being very sort of vague because A, I haven't had the facts in front of me. I only have sort of overview of what I see as the issue. Some of it is, at this point, part of a defense strategy that I can't reveal to the prosecutor for at least a few more months. And then the second part of it is that there's timing issues. If I can avoid coming to this council and asking for additional appropriations for something that's not going to happen, then I need to go ahead and be conscious about that. I need to not ask for more money than is necessary under the circumstances. So we've got to explore these other issues that the defense bar is trying to, the defense team is trying to isolate and put in front of me at some time in the next 6 to 9 months. All right, what can I answer for you?
Judge, it seems to me that some of these expenses were reimbursed or something. I remember you were explaining that.
Yeah, right now,
But this isn't part of it. This is when the trial's happening or something, or,
Yeah, that was a question I had. Would we anticipate that a portion of that 200,000 would be reimbursed?
yes.
Okay.
But it, right now, the state has paid 50% back to us of the defense fees that we have submitted. In other words, every quarter I put in a claim to the state that says these are our defense fees over the last 3 months. And thus far, they have met that by giving us 50% back. They have every reason to believe that they'll continue.
okay. Thank you.
And that, Judge, is that 50%, is that like a standard that's a law, that's their procedure, or is that just a?
It is. There is for ordinary criminal defense cases and felony cases, we get 40% back of criminal defense fees in felony cases, not misdemeanor. But in capital murder, you get 50% of those expenses back. And that's just under a different statute, it's under a different review board. That's why he submits those for the criminal felony cases for both courts, and I submit it up to the state for the capital murder.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I appreciate the update on the timeline, because I was wondering about that.
Yeah, I know, and you give me the floor and I can talk for hours, literally. But I will tell you that there has been an increase in the case load, both civil and criminal, in the Superior Court over the last year. And that's not a surprise. We saw that trend happening before COVID, and then there was a dip during COVID and the year following that. And now we are seeing that trended back up. I can't give you the exact numbers because I don't know track so many numbers in my head, but I could get that to you.
Would it be fair to say, and I feel like we kind of started down this road last year with the prosecutor's office too, that all of this is trending towards that eventual magistrate court, that we're planning for in the renovation, and we've seen the trends in the case workload, but moving this third court reporter up to full-time, does that feel like that's just a continuation of our trend?
I could see a situation where a magistrate would come in a couple, 3 years, and that the court reporter that's been apportioned into full-time would then be the primary court reporter for that magistrate.
Okay.
So yes, that's exactly the way I see it happening. But, again, to get a magistrate, that requires buy-in from council and commissioners and also the state, because the magistrate is funded by the state, but the council has would then have the obligation to make sure that there's the resources for
Right.
the magistrate, right?
Right.
So it requires, it's not a judge's decision, it's a legislative decision, but it has to have buy-in from the council. And so we're building towards that way, and I know our statistics, our metrics support that we're getting to that stage.
Anything else for Judge Hunter? Thank you very much.
We had the option of bringing that magistrate issue to you this year, but we chose not to. Judge Mueller wisely suggested that we wait another couple of years, and part of that is to save the county money. We thought we could try to use senior judges to fill the.
It'd be nice if we could get past the capital murder case before we deal with that.
Yeah, it would be. I agree with you.
So, okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And then finishing the criminal justice system, we'll move on to the prosecutor's budget, which is tab 17. Tony, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The budget I submitted is one that only includes the proposed pay increase.
Okay.
But I do have some explanation and adjustment in child support. office. As you look at the personal services category, you'll see two deputy prosecutor positions, 16 and 19, that both show $75,000. Those positions presently are funded at $66,000 and $69,000. So that's not a flat 10% increase. It is an adjustment that's based upon what I'm seeing surrounding counties paying for new deputy prosecutors. So it's going to have two deputy prosecutors that will be in their first year, so to speak, with me, although they're not brand new deputy prosecutors, either one of them. And so the idea was to put them both in the same pay category. Right now, one of those positions is not filled. I expect a deputy prosecutor to return to my office the first week of October that will fill one of those two positions. That's the only vacancy that I have at this point, would be that deputy prosecutor vacancy. So one of those positions I've been using an hourly rate equivalent to $69,000 a year to pay John Myers. Used to be my chief deputy, he retired, but he's been filling in on that position. So although technically it's an unfilled position, I am using the funds for another deputy prosecutor office at this time. But I wanted to explain that those weren't exactly the 10%. One somewhat less, one somewhat more, but it's to get them both to the $75,000 a year level. The deputy prosecutors that I have right now that are being paid $69,000 a year, they actually had opportunities to work in other counties for over $80,000 a year. And they came to work for me instead. And so under the circumstances, just understand the pay pressures that I'm seeing to try and fill those positions right now. The funding that I have is starting to fall behind other counties and what other counties are paying. Tippecanoe County has been a huge drain on the deputy prosecutor market. They're constantly hiring because they constantly have turnover. And so they're paying more and more. And most of the people that come to work for me are getting job offers over there that are well in excess of that. Boone County is paying $75,000 for brand new deputy prosecutors at this point. So not a deputy prosecutor that has the kind of experience that other people that I've been hiring in the past. So the most recent deputy that I hired, Jennifer Maple, came to me from Johnson County. She was making over $80,000 a year in Johnson County. And came to work here. It's a combination of, husband has a job in Anderson, family's in Kokomo, looking for something closer than what Johnson County was. And so it worked out that I was able to get someone that has experience. But there are real pay pressures right now trying to fill deputy prosecutor positions. I just wanted to make you aware of that. Any questions on any of that?
Do you anticipate any outside of the norm costs for your department for the capital murder case?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I would agree with all the comments you heard from Judge Moore and Judge Hunter as to case levels and the way the workload is currently divided up. We're able to cover that with the staff that I have at this point. The capital case is going to be an ongoing special need over and above that. Part of, and the judge doesn't know what I know about what's going on with the capital case, so he was trying to be very circumspect. There's going to be another filing related to the dismissal of the death penalty in that case. The petition hasn't been filed yet. I know it's coming. I know what the issues are on that filing. It's going to require expert testimony. There's going to be expert testimony on the other side. That's part of what the dollars are being spent for on that side already. There's going to be a need for experts on my side. I have been building money in infraction deferral and the diversion fund such that I'll be able to cover those expenses.
Okay.
With money that's already unappropriated cash, essentially, that's ready to be appropriated for that
Okay, good.
And so I had no additional request for experts for that capital case. It'll be in my professional services line items, in my regular budget, and then in the infraction deferral budget is where I'll take care of that. So that, there will be expenses. The expenses on experts can add up so quickly. I just had an expert, I had to have a review of an autopsy by a second forensic pathologist. Just a paper review of an autopsy and a police report associated with an autopsy cost me $2,450. I not too long ago had a deputy prosecutor who subpoenaed medical records on a case, and he wasn't circumspect enough in his subpoena for medical records. The medical records cost my office $7,000, and that deputy prosecutor no longer works for me. So just understand that sometimes records and experts, the dollars can just get crazy. Right now, I've got about $100,000 between diversion and deferral that are available for experts and records. So I'm in a position where I'm ready to take care of those issues as they come up. That's on the capital case. Overall caseload, I would agree. We had 1,200 cases filed last year. We're slightly ahead of that rate for this year now. So we're getting back closer to the rates we saw pre-COVID, where we were filing 1,300 to 1,400 cases a year. That's above what used to be average. What used to be average was 1,100 cases a year. So we seem to be getting back to a higher level of total case filings in the county. And so if that does continue, that trend would support establishing a magistrate. And if it goes even higher yet, it'll get to the point where it will justify adding yet another court. But at this point, that's years on down. Any other questions? I did have an adjustment in my child support office budget.
Yeah, I was gonna say before we open that up, why don't we hit child support? We've got a couple other budgets, the victim services and then the deferral that you've already kind of referenced. So let's, in the 4D budget,
In the 4D budget, I had a member of the staff there who resigned, carrying on with the two workers who were left for staff in addition to the investigator, and not filling the one position. The position that left was the administrative assistant. So what I have submitted to the council and the current array of staffing is I moved the caseworker to be a co-administrator, so I essentially am working now with two people with equal responsibility and equal tasks, and then the investigator. So instead of having the administrative assistant position, the 14, the caseworker position, 15, is working presently as a co-administrator. So 13 and 15 should be the same pay, but the 14 line item goes away.
so I'm not sure our numbers are up to date because
No.
we're not reflecting what you're saying. So,
This just.
okay,
It just
Okay,
happened.
okay.
Okay, and so this happened after submission of the budget, before today's meeting, the paperwork has been submitted. I'm not sure the council has seen the changes yet, that I've seen.
I'm aware of them, but I haven't seen the numbers. Yeah, so we can cover that before September, obviously.
Okay, so 15 is 41,018?
13.
13 and 15 are,
13 and 15 will both be 41,018.
Okay, thank you.
They're presently both in the area here. Right now, I think they're both around 37,000.
And which one goes away?
The
14.
position that goes away is 14. The assistant position. Now, overall, it winds up being less money.
Mhm.
And the impact to the county budget is attenuated because child support is reimbursed 66 cents on the dollar by the state. It's actually several dollars to pay for child support enforcement in the state of New investigator position that's marked new, in the budget that I submitted, that was new last year, it's not for this year. It's already filled. And then I did propose a larger increase, than 10% for the deputy prosecutor, position for child support. I'm proposing 37.5. That's because I did an analysis of the hours, that are being used, for the child support, deputy prosecutor, greater, than, 20 hours a week. Therefore, I'm trying to move that to a pay that's equivalent to like half-time pay, for the deputy prosecutor position for child support. So that was the part of child support that changed, and also the part that wasn't, standard 10% increase.
Okay.
As proposed.
Victim services and infraction deferral are pretty
They're just,
straightforward.
yeah, they are just the proposed pay increase, shown on those numbers. Now with, the Victims Assistance Office, they are grant supported. You're only seeing the county dollars, that go towards, their pay. Their pay is 37 for the administrator and 24,000 a year, for the assistant there. That's the total pay. You're just seeing the county amount that's paid to the employees in the budget. So, under the circumstances, we continue to hear that the amount of grant funding for victims assistance is going to be reduced. And it's a moving target at this point as we go through, the grant submission process and the county pay increase, trying to sync those different cycles up. And we wind up with, we want to try and keep them at the pay increases that are given to other county employees, but in part to keep them there, we're relying upon grant funding to improve at the level we're expected to. And if it's not, then they wind up not moving up to
Yeah.
other county employees.
All right, any questions for the prosecutor on any of those budgets?
No.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Want to divert from the earlier schedule here. Just quickly, I want to let Dan go next. I know he's got a conflict later this afternoon, and he is towards the bottom of our list if we held him to it. So that is tab 23. Dan, we'll
Morning,
begin, we'll begin with the regular surveyor's budget.
Good morning. I'm working from memory.
Yep.
I think the only two items I raised was vehicle maintenance. And, something else, I've got money in there for a new vehicle coming out of user fee, an additional 4,000 for that, however, I was advised by the auditor to remove that due to it may not pass state board of accounts review. One other item I raised, but I can't remember it right now.
The fuel,
Yes, fuel.
yeah.
Other than that, the normal raises, I think that's everything I changed.
Okay. Drainage board. Looks pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I didn't have anything.
Yeah, I think that's just, again, wages. Plat book. I think the only thing, yeah,
2,000 for a flag.
yeah, we added we talked about that in last year's budget, the pictometry, 3-year commitment, so that's reflected in here. Corner perpetuation is strictly professional services. I think that's the way it always is, if I remember right. And then the user fee fund, Dan referenced the vehicle. You'll see he does not have enough for an entire vehicle in here, but we also, for the last several years, have had some money in landfill to get a department of vehicle, and so we have I guess the funding in landfill that would be the remaining amount that we would need to get a vehicle for the surveyor. If they were all like this, it'll be a quick day. Anybody have any questions? Easy enough. All right, thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
All right. As I look at my list, I'll make a comment here. The next one is area plan. Liz reached out to me yesterday. She is isolating with COVID and is not going to join us today. And so I asked her if she had any major changes. She had a few things that we probably would talk about, but they're mostly things that are needed, like additional expenses for professional services for the solar farm, the solar project, her increase in her fuel budget, some things like that. So I told her we could cover those in September and not to worry about trying to figure out how we were going to do it today.
Alan, do you want me to mention some stuff as area plan president? I mean, I know a little bit about Lester as well.
Well, I have no objection other than I told Liz not that we weren't going to deal with it today, and I'd feel bad if you.
I'll just mention one thing, with the fuel, I know she asked for additional appropriation, which doesn't necessarily relate to this budget, but area plan, they were not covered under the county's fuel contract in the past. So we have that changed for 23, so hopefully we'll be much closer in terms of usage. Just ship down, know how much, rather than just getting the spot price.
Yeah, we discovered that when her fuel budget ran out so quickly this year that she was paying, almost twice what the contract for 2022 was, and so we discovered that. I don't know how that slipped through the cracks before, but we got it.
I think some of it was just, there wasn't that fluctuation in fuel prices over the last 2 or 3 years. It was pretty consistent. So you just didn't notice it. And now, when it doubled, or more than doubled, it started eating away the budget pretty quickly. So
Everybody noticed that.
Yeah. So we'll give Liz an opportunity to address the council next month. So with that, we'll move to the assessor's budget, which is tab number 2.
I'm ready for a break.
Hey, already? Hold on, I
was
won't
gonna
do
say.
that yet.
I'm just having trouble I'm sorry. I'm having trouble waking up.
Oh, I have some extra
This is,
strong coffee that I accidentally made this morning, if you want some of it.
we're gonna call this the Jada budget.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is the new assessor.
So we have a couple of budgets here to
I
go
told
over.
her you
We'll-
could just cut it off.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a good budget.
So let's start with the regular assessor's budget.
I think basically the only thing, I did office supplies, so I figured she would have to get new stamps and if we can, I mean, our supplies are pretty much anyway, so if I can get it out of this year's budget, we may go ahead and do that, but
Okay.
I'd like to have it in there for at least.
That's a good question. Do you have like letterhead that lists you as the auditor that would have to be replaced and things like that?
Just
Okay,
the- Just the stamp.
okay, okay.
Oh, and then Oh, yeah, I talked with Alan on the bilingual. I didn't know how to word that, but Ariana in my office is vital to, interpretation, to translate taxpayers coming in, especially at appeals time. And the other offices, I know even out at the sheriff's desk, have had just to, help people know where they are going.
She gets dragged out of the office sometimes.
It's not a lot, but
It's,
it
yeah,
is,
just something
it is a
to-
plus, and I think a lot of it is comfort. The taxpayer feels comfortable. I may be telling them the same thing, but they do feel more comfortable. With doing reassessment all the time, we really noticed it this year because we were reassessing, for this year, we were assessing Frankfurt. So I didn't know how that was handled. I know the courts have translators. But I just wanted to throw that out there and kind of, give
This-
her something
Okay.
for that. It's not a requirement, but it's an asset to the county and it's an asset to our office because we do have a lot of one-on-one
Well, it was a
not
thing-
just saying where they are, assign this stop. We have full-blown conversations when they're coming in.
Well, obviously, it's an asset to our office that we were lucky enough to hire her and that we can use her. But when she gets pulled out to be used for other things, that's what made me say something to Dana about like, hey, maybe we should try to put something additional in there for her because she is being pulled from our office and utilized in other areas.
So will she be paid hourly or
She is a
just,
salary
so
employee.
this would just be,
This is a
This
stipend.
just
this
like
is a stipend, that's
Yeah.
right, yes.
And that's why we pulled it out. I didn't know what else to
And made it a separate
put it
thing.
in. It
So
can
it
be
wasn't
Very
in
good.
with her
a
pay,
stipend,
it's just
yeah.
a separate
Yeah.
line item.
Just-
Ray, do you have staff the same?
She has one, right? One.
This
I'm
is,
sure
this is
you're
like HR
interested
stuff,
in-
right? I mean, this is,
Well, we,
like,
we do put, I mean, we have an interpreter budget in the courts,
okay,
so we handle it a little differently, but it's not unprecedented.
okay.
Okay, that was just. that
Good,
was something
thank you,
that
yeah,
I
good,
was
thank
just-
you for the explanation,
I don't know
yeah.
how else to put it in there,
Yes.
or, now, she will not, I mean, she will go up and help, maybe in the courts, but
They
she,
don't normally ask for
but
her.
they don't normally ask, but
Because they have
sometimes if they don't, if somebody's not there, but she's not going to be one, there's so many dialects, so she doesn't feel comfortable saying, I'm a translator. But it is more of a communicator and an asset to us.
Okay, thank you for the explanation.
Yes, thank you.
Anything in reassessment that we need to,
Um,
so we should, is 23 a new contract year? Is that the new contract?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, we're
So-
obviously in
so-
22, so
Do
are
we know
done-
that number yet, or is this an estimate?
No, we know that. number.
Okay,
Yes.
okay,
Yes,
Yeah,
Um,
June it started the new
okay.
yeah.
contract
We
of
had
this
to
year.
have that done.
So it's been bid out and signed, yes.
Okay, great.
The only thing is, we are still working on appeals for, this
22.
last reassessment. So there is money, there is part of that retainer from the last budget still in this year, because his contract doesn't officially end until appeals are done.
Okay.
Because that's from the last contract, but that is an amount. If you go to line 60 in the services, or the other services, I left, that was the line item that was paying for our Xsoft hardware, the system itself.
Yes,
With the other line item that is Xsoft support is our annual.
the maintenance plan,
yeah.
right?
But I reduced that and relabeled it pictometry and beacon, because now that we kind of got going with pictometry and beacon for a reassessment, there are some things that we can upgrade through the beacon program, especially for our splits.
So we're done with Exoff, the purchase of the product.
Yes.
Purchase of the product, I paid that off this year.
Okay, and so 060 is now pictometry and beacon.
I guess. And I figured that way I can separate it out from the contractual services, and we
Yeah.
can show what that is. There is a program on Beacon, and farmers, you know what those soil types look like on the map and how squirrely they are. They have a program that will help with the split part of farmland, or any land, really. That would be an asset to the office. We have just not, we've seen the program, and I'm sure it's up.
So it's helping you determine the productivity factor?
No, what it would do was, so right now, it's still, because it was so costly when we checked into it years ago, it was one of those where we're like, hey, well, we're not doing that, moving on.
Yeah,
So we're gonna look into it again and see, since it's not so new, maybe, check into it, but, so right now, still, when I go in and do a split, I pull the map up, turn on that soil layer, and I sit and draw them all out and
and
measure
it
them all
calculates,
still by hand.
okay.
So I have to remeasure, where if we were able to have the money to do that, they would go in and have a program that has all that in there. Once that split is drawn out, and I click it, it would automatically fill in, so many acres is this, and so many acres, where I'm doing it all myself now.
Okay.
It's just a
And
little
it
cleanup
would
and
be
make
a
it-
lot quicker, where sometimes I have large parcels with multiple soil types.
Okay.
I might spend half an hour doing one, just measuring soil types.
Okay.
It's just something we were thinking about, approaching
it's-
them again,
And I
what's the
didn't wanna
fee?
drop my budget because we got into trouble
Yeah,
with
you're
my
right.
tax rate.
Right,
So I
right.
really didn't wanna drop it, completely do away with that, cause I wasn't sure what that would do to the rate, cause this is a rate in itself.
But she did more.
But, and I did, yeah,
Isn't that
the
right?
the XOF support is the new value for next year.
I think you
And I lowered contractual services a little bit.
And the beacon.
And the beacon,
pictometry,
yeah, I
because-
just, it was like 27.2.
Right.
And I just made it a even 20, and that's something, you know, we can play around with, but I didn't wanna lose my tax, actually my tax rate, cause we're getting it back up to, we're finally leveling off, I think, a little bit on.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
And for the new ones, it makes it hard because my contract for reassessment that comes out of this, which is the biggest part of it, ends in the middle of the year. So I'm paying off my old contract, but my new one's already started. So that's why we made the retainer, so I can pay that out a little bit at a time instead of at the end.
Is that done because that matches the assessing year? Or is there any
Well,
reason
it
why
doesn't
we
really
couldn't?
match
It
the
doesn't,
assessing.
no, it,
I mean,
that's, I
Could,
had-
could we
I
not
don't
make
know.
the next contract 6 months longer to get to the end of the year?
And I don't know if that, that's, I think it, is it a statutory thing, or?
It's a statutory
DLGF
that the
thing?
new one comes in at that time, yeah, I mean, June,
We'll have to check into that.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could clean that up.
yeah.
Right, and make
is
it be
new
the first of the year, and
but I
June
don't,
is just,
but that's kinda where we got a little short a couple of years, well,
Yeah.
about 4 years ago.
so.
Okay.
But other
So,
than that, I think.
let me-
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but 0360 and 0361,
Yes.
are those both Beacon and, or
No.
no?
The
60
X-
60 is,
61.
So 60 was, when we bought the XOF program
Yes.
that they're using, we financed it over a period of years,
Yep.
5 years, I believe. And so we finished that payment. And so that line item, she's just
is going.
proposing to rename
Yeah,
them.
we're renaming it, and then 61.
61 is the
That's-
ongoing
That's the
maintenance.
So-
Maintenance.
The
Like the
annual
auditor
maintenance.
does, the treasurer has their maintenance.
But not for, so this will be renamed too, it's not.
No, it
it's
continues
soft.
as is. 61
XOF?
continues as
It's
is.
still my XOF program.
Okay,
The only one changing is 60.
Is
Okay.
60 is the only one that
And it's pictometry / beacon.
yes, okay.
because they kinda go hand in.
No,
Okay.
60's zeroing out.
No, the number's correct, it's just
No, I
being,
just-
we're changing the descriptor of what
Okay.
what
Yeah.
that's being
We
used
will, we
for.
will change that.
Yeah.
You don't have
Very
to worry
good.
about that.
Okay,
I do wanna mention that, we have a technical issue right now, so online people can see us, but they cannot hear us.
Okay.
I've asked for my office to call Tim, but when they're finished, we might wanna take a short break and let him,
Okay.
cause they're having trouble hearing.
So is everybody clear on 0060 then?
Oh, well,
Okay.
they probably need to be, we need to be using the microphone over here at the podium. That's,
They can't hear you either, Clark.
oh. Okay.
It's the re- it's-
Gee, that's.
they are missing out.
60 is- But most of it's an in and
Same,
same.
not a whole
in and
lot to
out.
it. Not a whole lot to ours.
Okay.
No, I thought you had a good budget.
Well, thank you for the explanations on those other items, though. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's very helpful. So, any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so as Britt brought up, we'll take a short break here to let Tim try to fix our technical difficulties. John, they said that people can see us on YouTube, but they can't hear us. So Tim's gonna take a minute to see if we can figure out what's going on.
That's a bummer.
They said, who's that good-looking guy walking in front of the camera?
Yeah, I had to make my presentation there.
There comes an off shoulder somewhere.
Who's that old guy that's gotta go to the bathroom?
The other,
Well,
the age of the council, thinking, these guys are taking a break every 20 minutes.
do I need to change something?
Yeah, it did good to last that long.
And then I got your big long, I mean, you asked about Thursday, and I got a bus evacuation station. I mean,
You're the one exception to, I mean, everybody else could be here, so I'm hesitant to change the,
That's
because we
fine.
gotta try to work around the attorney's schedule, and that was when he had an opening.
that's fine, just,
I guess if you have any particular thoughts, at least let me know so that I can speak them on your behalf, but
Friday mornings.
I mean,
I just, and you're coming in late. You know,
Yeah, no.
you weren't in the beginning and haven't had the benefit of all the other executive sessions that we've gone through, so you'd have been in a tough spot anyway, but
that's fine.
I can try to send you a message
I
summarizing
mean,
the
I
meeting.
guess just,
I've tried to get off that.
I'll just try to keep you posted.
there's not gonna be any votes or anything.
No.
Okay, just
Somebody thinks
overall review, I assume, and change.
Yeah, I just want, I want to make
Change
sure,
of the guards.
kind of, I guess I just want to make sure before we decide where we're going forward, that everybody's had a chance to give their opinion. Because ultimately, the decisions going forward are going to be your decisions. And I wanted them to know what was said.
No, but, yeah,
Nepotism rule.
you know, I just
Doesn't that apply?
count those guys in that group.
It would, yeah.
I'll go first. It's like, well, listen, you wanted to go first.
So it got implemented at the beginning of Jeff Ward's administration when Wanda was his matron, so there was no,
Yeah.
this administration was the first one that it got tested. So,
Well,
but what, the point that I was trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. I mean, we can be transparent. I just, do we need to have that with,
Okay.
okay, that's the awkward part. It's not so much us, it's the department head. Well, I can just ask everybody to go to the podium, I guess, if we're gonna,
Think about,
if
I
we're
mean,
gonna,
I didn't even think about it.
just put it up there and I'll try to have people go over there. Okay.
They're gonna assess that.
Didn't hurt my feelings.
How could they?
Suggesting that right there. I mean, it's worth a little bit more, no matter what the outcome is. This is just me, that soil should just be worth a little bit more. Like Milford, it's like that.
And then you get up into some of the other soils.
Oh, yeah, darn.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Oh, no.
God's really splitting hairs there. And that's exactly what I was getting
When
at.
it comes to
I'm
money, I mean,
thinking, you know, my God, I mean, they caption for everything that you got. Almost the air you breathe, you know. I'm thinking, understand you guys.
I know, I was like, yeah.
It needs to stop somewhere. No, that's right, exactly, yeah. And maybe I'm thinking outside the
they're
box.
putting value, what they're doing is actually on value, right? If I had to go out and buy 1,000 acres of land in order to get the same crop that a guy has to get 10%, and that land value is going to be not as valuable as a guy who's got high productive, so that's what their job is, to find value. And I guess that's how they figured it out.
Listen to you.
I never thought about it,
Yeah,
I
that's
never
right.
thought about
You
it.
should go down to India and just be a legislator.
No, not me, not me.
Yeah, because
No
there's some
doubt about it.
legislation needs
Oh,
to be
my-
changed.
I tell you, the pricing is just unbelievable. You know, all that, I was talking to somebody the other day about that North Dakota, you know. Gates buying up all that land up there in North Dakota, and China buying up land in North Dakota and displacing farmland, you know, which would be half price. Now they go out and buy it for twice as much. Well, now these farmers who have made this income off their land, they gotta pay taxes on it if they don't do something with it. They go out and buy land at higher value because they got so much money that they gotta get rid of.
Right.
So it's just a.
Yeah, they've only got
It just
just
keeps
a
trickling down.
minimum amount of days to do
I
that.
know it. And so that land value, they say it's just shooting up in that area. It's just, and people selling houses. I got a friend that sold a house. I just could not believe. $300-something thousand for a house. It can't be more than, it's gotta be less than 2,000 square foot, I would say.
What did North Dakota for?
in this neighborhood, I mean, if it was right here in Frankfurt. you're
No, I
probably-
mean normally back there. I mean, you're,
I have no, it's been so long since I've been there.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just saying, if you pay $325,000 for a home in a neighborhood where it's like side-by-side homes with, you know, a quarter of an acre lot and a house that's less than
yeah, right.
$300,000.
Just like the neighbor right down there is go into the curve before you get to 39. They've got their house that's, and there's not much more than 2 or 3 acres there. And it's an older house, but it's halfway modern. What is it, 6 and a quarter or 675? Chad told me, he says, if they get that out of theirs, I'm selling. No, that's right. That's what he's hoping. That's right.
This guy ripped somebody off just recently.
Did he?
I did pretty good.
Well, that's the name of the game, Mark.
I'm pretty satisfied.
You had a nice place, though. I mean, that, for some, especially for some young couple that gets ready to start, man, they couldn't ask for
You had what acreage you have?
There's 5 acres altogether
So
now.
you sold 5 acres.
Yes, that helped it a lot,
Yeah, that-
because I only mowed about 2, so the rest
You
of
had
it's
what,
in.
about 4,000 square feet?
Yeah, including the basement, which was finished. You know, it's a walkout basement, so. There's only 3 bedrooms, but there's 3 baths.
Still.
Some people said, well, there was no bathroom upstairs, because when we built the place, our girls were old enough that we knew they weren't gonna be there that long. We didn't really want a bathroom we had to take care of upstairs.
It's
Where their bedrooms
farm,
were.
farm, you know, if you gotta go, you walk out the back door.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's what my grandson does when he comes over, he
The
says,
girls don't buy that, you know.
But I will tell you this, though, the house is 22 years old, and I've replaced several things, like I've got second roof, you know, new roof, basically, and HVAC's been replaced not too long ago, so it'll be good for a while, but there's a whole lot of other things that are gonna become maintenance issues in the next 5 to 10 years. It's like, my realtor says it only gotta work until the day it closes.
but that's, any house,
Yeah, but you know those I do that.
Yeah, but
And it wasn't on the market for how long?
48 hours.
I've never
I mean, showed it, we advertised it at noon on Wednesday, showed it 6 times on Wednesday, 4 times on Thursday, and I had 4 offers Friday morning.
you got what you wanted?
Yeah. That's
I don't know.
20,000 over asking.
Can't complain.
I set the asking price about 20,000 below where I really wanted to be.
Where you could work.
Because that's the thing these days right now, is you want to get your house, people in their whole bunch of showings right away.
Yes.
Because it creates an urgency about the whole thing, and everybody, you know, makes really quick decisions. If you put it too high, then people kind of ho-hum around about it, and all of a sudden, then you're having to reduce your price.
That really, we can ask that question.
I think they put about 60,000.
What I don't know is whether there's a reporting they have to keep it North Dakota. It could be
So they can
I mean,
report on
soon they put it on the market 2 days later.
exact amount of.
especially when they keep them the same,
Yeah.
when they're trying to match each other.
But that's a good area, you know, about TP.
The only,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's all about location.
Additional appropriation.
Of course, they asked me who lives across the road. I didn't elaborate a whole lot.
Sometimes you don't want to.
Oh, it's my cousin Marty.
that'd be the only way to combine it.
Marty settled down.
Not much.
That might be why we.
I don't know, it just always.
You don't know anything about this, but there was gunfire going off in his house
They tend
the
to
other day.
coordinate, you know, and do it
Yeah,
jointly.
somebody came in and was arguing with him.
Between the budgets, so
They had a gun,
we'd have to think that through, whether we'd actually gain.
but he didn't report it. He didn't report it. Because the other guy was kind of a friend, but he was drinking. Now, that's the kind of stuff I live next to.
much he has.
No, he's slowed down a little just because he's old and fat like me. But he's drunk most of the time.
Sad.
This thing's still on.
Sad.
Okay. Yeah,
You know, yeah, that's a nice pickup.
You got your boat, you got your vacation, your cruise.
Who knows?
You only made $5. Yeah, okay. I see what you're doing. I mean, as long
Yeah,
as we're
that's right.
done, we
Yeah,
can.
how do I get that job?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
Well, I had my first trip.
you claim everything. They claim everything.
Were you there during the torrential rains and all over?
No, we had no rain. 2 weeks we were gone. First time ever been there, and Pam and I both decided last time they're going to, because apparently they just,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they got
I
$87.
don't know where they're
That's coming after
And we
you,
went down.
Jeff.
Was it hot?
That's coming after you.
No, just feed.
Oh, oh, I'm sure. So we're gonna pass them off?
Well, we'll give them the option, either they can take it and sit, or they can stand at the podium.
Okay.
Okay, we'll restart, we're ready for the clerk's budget. So what we've learned here is that the YouTube audience can hear us, we have our microphones up here, but they can't hear the department heads who are speaking to the council. So when we get to you, if you're willing to come to the podium, or if you'd rather sit, take the microphone and have it with you at the chair, but that will give those that are trying to follow along, and for those that may want to watch a recording later, the ability to hear the department heads. So, Ray, we're ready for you. You get to be the first guinea pig to so you're welcome to take it and sit, or to address from the podium.
What number are we on now?
This is tab number 5.
Alright.
And we will begin with the regular circuit court budget.
Okay. Haven't looked at this in a while, so bear with me. Alright. So the first thing we have is staff, is that what we're looking at? If you'll notice, I went ahead and gave everyone the raises from the first information that we received from
The
you.
10%?
Right.
Yep.
I don't know if that's changed or not, hopefully not.
Has not yet.
Notice that the clerk, at that point, of course, I always put everyone's names, doesn't really matter, but I didn't know at that point who would officially be the clerk, because we still had not reached all of our deadlines yet for filing deadlines. But I also did not increase that amount, because I was gonna leave that up to the council. In years past, whenever a new clerk was elected who didn't have any clerk experience, the council did not raise the pay. So, I was gonna leave that up to you guys and see what you wanted to do with that.
Okay.
So, up to you. Everybody else, they went ahead and raised. This year, of course, next year's budget is not like last year's. You'll see that it is abbreviated. Some of the things are basic needs, but it goes off of 4 years ago. It's similar to a budget from 4 years ago. Okay? If that makes any sense to you. So our office supplies, stationery, printing, toner, that kind of thing is the same. Now, I know that you and I have briefly talked about combining some of these things. However, since there will be a new clerk, I decided not to combine those things. I left it as is. I thought maybe that might make the budget process a little easier for a new clerk. Sometimes it makes it a little easier to understand, and then that new clerk, Stephanie will have that option then to combine those things as she sees fit.
Okay.
Okay?
Hang on, did you have a question, Jeff?
Postage.
Well, if you could have, when you said it's like 4 years ago, can you explain that?
Normally, the basic clerk's budget is as far as, wages and that sort of thing, it's pretty even keel, but when we get into the election budget,
Yes,
that's where it changes.
okay.
Because we run on a 4-year rotation,
Yeah.
and so we go back to, every 4 years. Each election is different, each year is different, has different needs and costs different. So next year is a municipal year, it only happens once every 4 years.
Very good.
And so we'll go back 4 years, kind of get an example of what it costs then, with, of course, you
So
know,
that
our
comment
needs
doesn't
this
relate
year.
so much to the circuit,
To this,
to the
yeah.
clerk's regular
Not to the
budget,
clerk's regular
but in
budget,
the election
but,
budget. Gotcha.
yeah, when we get to that area.
I just had a question with 02001 with the office supplies,
Correct.
asking for 12 and you used 1,800 this year so far. I didn't know if that had anything to do with.
1,800 so far this year?
Through June 30, that's
Yeah.
what we show in our books, yeah.
Yeah,
I've used like 5,000 to 6,000 so far this year. 5,000, I
So
just
caught
used
up, okay.
quite a bit. The way that we do it in the clerk's office, and we've done it this way for years, and that's why it looks so strange right about now, is that at the end of the year, we have a huge, inventory. We take a huge inventory, and so we stock up for the next year. So we use a large amount at the end of the year.
Okay.
We might have a little bit left over, but we started doing this a long time ago. So now we're in that rotation, that process of doing that. So every year come budget time, it looks like we're not using that, but we are using it.
okay, thank you.
Especially when we get close to election time and some of my election funds are running out. Sometimes I have to spill over maybe and use some of those funds for some things. But yeah. I'm sure you probably heard too, just a little FYI, paper costs are through the roof. Envelope costs, if you can find them, are through the roof. So if you need them, stock up. And it looks like from the information I'm getting from the election division, it's going to be that way through 2023, possibly 2024. So, just a little FYI.
Thank you.
We use a lot of paper and envelopes. I will, if we'll go to the second page, the clerk postage. In years past, that had been like $40,000. We don't use as much postage as we did since we've gone to Odyssey. We don't have as much going out. Now, we still have to send out some things, some notices to people, that sort of thing, but I brought it down to $5,000. I had not put any money into the postage machine until a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
I had just let everything run out of the meter. All the money that had been stocked up in there, stored up in there. Because I wanted to see how long it would take for us to use all that money. So it took 4 years
Wow.
for us to use that money. So now we're starting new. I think I put $8,000 in there. I went ahead, $8,000 or $9,000. I went ahead and put my clerk's postage in there and then my voter election postage in there. So I went ahead and put that in there. So we have postage for the clerks and then there will be the postage for the election in there. So be aware that that maybe need to be tweaked a little bit, but I doubt it. Okay.
Okay. Let's move to the election budget, which you,
Well, I do have one more thing.
oh, okay, go ahead.
I will have to say down on the bottom of that second page, that clerk service agreements, I need to bump that up to about 55. I had an annual agreement come in this year. Pretty much all of my other vendors had let me know last year that our agreements would be raised for this year, so I could put that in my budget. However, I got a bill this year from Boyce, and my agreement was much larger than anticipated, and I didn't have the budget for it. I had to appropriate money from another area and put in there, so I would like to raise that to 5,500 to make sure that there's plenty in there to cover that, and that is something that I have to have. That is for my check writer, my DocuServe.
You know that when we advertise a budget, we can't go over unless we do an additional appropriation later. So if we're gonna bump that one up, we'd either need to offset with a cut somewhere else or put it on a list to additionally
Okay.
appropriate in January. My question to you would be is could we make up 1,000 of that with the office repair line item, or is there a specific need that you're have in mind with the office
Yeah.
repair? Because that looks like a new line or a new
Yeah,
request.
I think we could.
Okay, that would get us,
Okay.
we'd be $500 off, so I don't know if, we
Yeah.
could do like, seminars, meals and lodging at 3,500 instead of 4,000?
Yep.
Okay, that'd get you
that.
back to level,
Can do.
and it's still a $500 increase on the seminars, so.
Okay. So you want to skip to budget to,
So then let's move to the election board.
okay. Alrighty.
A question to start, am I right that on a municipal election year, we get a reimbursement from the city for
Yes.
some amount of these costs?
Yep.
What, is it the entirety of the
it's-
election cost or a portion of it, or what, how does that work? I can't remember.
We obviously pay for it up front, and then we will bill the city for majority of the costs that we incur. There might be a little bit that we have to pay for, but it is a majority of the cost. There is a form that's used that we break down everything, absolutely everything that we use, down to the last little pen, piece of paper, envelope, worker hours, I mean, absolutely everything. Percentage of the machines that we use, that sort of thing. So, yeah, they pay for the majority of it. Any small towns that have elections, obviously we cover those. They do have agreements with the election board as to how much they will pay. I have put a bug in the election board's ear, and I will do so at the next meeting that we have to reach out to these smaller towns to try to get a new contract with them to increase the amounts that they paid. Those amounts have not increased in a number of years, and it's well overdue. We don't want to put a huge burden on them. However, that burden is put on us. And as our cost increased, so should theirs, so.
If I could trouble you to do so, before September, if you could make your best guess as to what that reimbursement would be,
Sure,
so that we can make sure we account for that on our revenues,
sure.
that would be helpful.
Yep. And I don't think I have anything really, definitely nothing outlandish on here. Nothing really any different than any other election year. I will tell you that, our mechanics are asking for a trailer. The election board does not have money in their budget to buy them a trailer. With the mandates that the state has passed down, with all of the equipment that we have to use now, our equipment will not fit in the back of their trucks. They can only put 3 items.
So this is
perhaps.
to transport vote equipment to the site? Okay.
Yeah, and they both have trucks. However, with the Indiana code, everything's has to be done in a bipartisan manner. And they are a Republican and a Democratic team, but they're supposed to go together. So they can't go, one person goes to this area to drop off things, another person goes to another area. And now we have forms that ensure that they both are at the same place, have to have signatures when things are dropped off by both of them and the receiving party and that sort of
The
thing.
EMA trailer would work for this, wouldn't it?
I would think we
Yeah.
could find a usable trailer. for the
Okay,
EMA.
something covered.
Yeah, they have
Yeah.
an enclosed trailer.
Yeah,
I think we've already got that equipment that could be used.
okay, perfect. That they can use to
Yeah.
deliver and pick
Yeah.
up, great.
Yeah, so we'll just need to coordinate a little bit ahead of time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Good, good, good. And
I see you have some iPads and cases.
I do have iPads and cases on here. Our iPads are several years old. They are, if they're not already, they will soon be not supported by Microsoft anymore. So they're still working, and I've been holding off until they absolutely are totally obsolete, and have been waiting for a new version to come out. I think a new version has recently rolled out. So new iPads need to be bought. Those need to be purchased. And really what needs to happen, and I'll leave that up to the new clerk, honestly, at some point, after working through several years of using e-poll books, not wanting to burden the county, but it would be really great if there were a second set of e-poll books that were purchased. Because I know you don't know the process, but when we use the e-poll books, we send them out, we get them programmed, set for absentee voting. And those go out, the last day that they're used are on a Saturday, except for the one used here in the courthouse is used on that Monday until noon. Then we have to try to get them back very quickly because we have to reprogram them to get them ready for Tuesday. Well, we're not here Sunday, you know, and we're trying to clean things up on Monday, trying to make sure this is all cleaned up down here. Getting everything ready, making sure we get all the information we need off of those, make sure that they are all prepped and ready to go out on Monday morning. That's a little rough. That is a little hard to get done. We do it, but it is rough. And the guys are waiting for us. You know, let's get it done. It would be really great if we had two sets so that we could bring those in, have another set all ready to go, just like we do our machines, our voting machines, ready to go, all programmed to go out on Monday for Tuesday morning. So, just putting a little plug in your ear, plant that in your brain. That would be a fantastic scenario if that could happen while you're purchasing updated.
Okay. So the poll books you're referring to, is that the iPads? Or is that
Pardon?
different? Are the poll books different than the iPads, or are they the
Same thing.
Same thing,
Same
okay.
thing, sorry.
Okay.
E-poll books,
So
iPad, same.
You're saying in an ideal world, 26 instead of 13?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or, you know, purchase new ones next year, first thing. Maybe try to use those old ones as absolutely long as possible, and then maybe purchase, you know, another set when possible.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be great. FYI, the VVPATs that we have,
Yes?
we now have enough for every machine. We have that covered.
Good.
I think I told you I was able to get more
Yeah.
free
Yeah.
from the Secretary of State's office through some wheeling and dealing. But we now have all that we need. We were able to purchase some, get a lot for free. We used them, rolled them out this spring. Great reception by the voters. They like them. I was shocked. Any other questions on the election?
Okay, let's move to the voter registration budget.
Okay. Okay. Anything here?
That one looks pretty straightforward.
Yeah, no changes.
As does the records perpetuation. Maybe thinking about going back to the topic we just talked about, looking at last year's records perpetuation budget, we had it as extra labor was the primary thing, and at least through June 30th, it's showing that we hadn't really spent much out of there.
I'm sorry, you had what?
So on the Records Perpetuation Fund, we had last year budgeted for this year, for 2022, $18,000 for extra labor. And as of June 30th, it shows that none of that had been spent.
Correct.
Is there a possibility that some of that money could be used for the extra pole pads that you were just talking about? If we get to the end of the year and you haven't had to utilize that for extra labor?
I'd have to check and see that we can use the clerk's perpetuation fund for pole pads.
Okay,
I don't know that that could be used
not
for election
allowable
things.
use, okay.
I don't know that it's allowed.
Well, even if you could move something else into that budget that would free up money in the election budget, for instance, then we could.
I don't, that's for normal clerk office perpetuation, records perpetuation, that type of thing, not election things. I'd have to
I
check.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that maybe there's some other item we could move from the clerk's regular budget to there that would free up a spot that could be used to buy the extra pole pads.
Such as?
I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet, but
Okay.
something to think about. We can talk about it later, but it's just
Okay.
an idea that I was trying to
We can
make.
talk about it.
if
We
we-
can talk about it, but I cut the budget pretty shallow several years ago, and there really is not a lot to move. The only thing that might have a little wiggle is office supplies. But again, I like to have that a little padded because I never know from year to year what we're gonna need.
Okay.
Have no idea.
I was just trying to be creative.
I appreciate your creative mindedness. Do.
So that extra labor that's here,
Uh-huh. Why do we have it?
do you see that being spent out this year or not? Because it actually in 2020 and 2021,
I know, I
337.
have kept that open, with an agreement with the council from years ago, in case, because I actually have not used, I at one time had 3 part-time people, and we haven't had them use them, but I've kept this open in case I need that part-time person. We always need an extra person in the clerk's office, but I don't have space for them. I am taking up every available space for the staff that I have, for all the full-time people. But in case I get there's ever any place to put a part-time person, and I get that availability, then we have this, or in case an urgent need arises, then I have that in place.
Soon to be double the number that was in there, that 13.8.
I can't hear you if you whisper.
That was on purpose.
Okay, I know.
One thing that we might keep that, John, that we might keep that handy for is as we move through the renovation of this building and that department's gonna move into a new office space. and
Right.
There may be needs for furnishings or things that are specific to your department. That might be,
Right.
that would clearly qualify as
That
records
would absolutely
perpetuation.
qualify, right.
So maybe this, having that build up is not the worst thing in the world moving forward. Any questions for Ray? Stephanie, I want to ask if you have any questions as you look at the budget, as you're the one that'll be administering it. Anything you'd
No.
like to add or ask of us? Okay. And if you think any, but we've got through September before we really, we'll do their cuts, any changes in September. I don't see a lot in this budget that would be changed, if anything. And then we
If you-
adopt in October, just so to get Stephanie up to speed on the schedule.
If you'd like to give me a parting gift, I am open for that.
Thank you for your service.
I appreciate that. Yes.
All right,
Just let me know.
thank you. Okay,
All right, pleasure.
next up, the commissioner's budget. and their other assorted budgets in tab number 6. Jordan, we've got, let's see, under your tab, it's the commissioners, the courthouse, Cume Courthouse, and IT. So, and Tim's here for IT, so we'll start with the commissioner's budget.
Okay, and also the other two commissioners are here. I know we're using the
Oh, yeah.
microphone, so if they need to come up, we'll make it work. But I put together a little cheat sheet for you guys. You can just pass it down. And I know it doesn't show, it shows the budgets that we have full input on, as well as some that we have some partial, and kind of the year-over-year change. And kind of on the average across all those, it's down 3% on the budgeted number. So just kind of a reference point as we go through some of the numbers and look at it. Commissioner's budget, pretty straightforward in terms of the 10% for the salaries. The one increase that I would highlight, I guess, or two things, is the utilities obviously are going up, the utility costs. We've seen that in all the entities around. Specifically, I'll use Duke, that said they're going to go up 16% in their utility cost. I haven't heard a specific number from Frankfurt Utilities, but in some other work with them, I envision that going up. The other thing I'd like to note, I'm sure all you guys are aware of, but that it's listed as courthouse utilities. However, that encompasses all the facilities. So EMA, Madison Township, the annex now. So it's not just the courthouse, it's every county building utility outside, I believe the sheriff department does their own utilities.
My question would be, Jordan, do you feel like the 25,000 is enough?
I think, based on where we had spent at this point and the conversations I had with them, that should cover, I mean, the utilities. So one thing we're gonna start saving on, we've been working with them over at the annex, that we had this somewhat large monthly charge when there was no activity over there. And we couldn't really pinpoint why this was happening. Well, we dug a little deeper and come to find out that they had been charging the industrial rate for that building. And so now we've got it switched to commercial. So that should significantly lower that, which is, it was roughly running around $600 a month, and it could be as low as $30 a month now.
Okay,
So,
good.
Until we start getting some activity over there with the renovation, it's one of those things that I think the 25 should cover it at this point, looking at our historical numbers and projecting some of the growth. The one thing we did add back, I think it came up in conversation last year, was the Maximus, Recovery Maximus, and there was some question of, it was in multiple budgets, but there are two charges for it, and so the 5,000 is added back in there under the commissioners.
Britt, a question I'll ask, the mental health number that's in here is always assigned to us by the state. That's the correct number for 2023, the 240? Okay,
It went up 11,000.
yeah, 11,000, yeah. It just kind of steadily creeps
Yeah.
higher.
I did change that.
Yeah, I saw.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we had the up-to-date number, okay? Okay, great, let's move to the courthouse budget.
On the courthouse, the first one that I would like to highlight is, we've had our custodian, Randy, he's been here as essentially part-time, and what we've found is that the workload is above part-time and really needs to be full-time. So we've increased that, and we've talked with him and working with him in making that a full-time position. And I think the transition, when we eventually get to the annex between both, will definitely be a full-time workload. So that would be one highlight in terms of the increase over last year on that position's budget.
Is that the 0022? Yeah, okay,
I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah.
I have,
okay.
Everything else was pretty well standard from the previous years. I believe the archives, we continue to, as time goes on, have issues with the repairs of the old documents, and so we're asking for money to kind of preserve the history of the county, and so I believe we bumped that up a little bit to the 6,000. And then the janitorial supplies increased, and I think everyone's probably highlighted, everything's up, so we're just accounting for increases in items around the courthouse as well as the other facilities.
I'd point out that in this budget, we did keep the $125,000 for the courthouse building improvements that was originally kind of put in there for the third floor renovations. We kept that in there. That was something that came up at our last meeting with Envoy. They did not have a number in their projections for the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And so this was an attempt to put some money in there so that when we got to the point that the renovations of the structure of the building were done, we had some money in place to, furnish that building. So it may not really be appropriately titled, but that was the intent of leaving that in there.
Yeah, we just left it under that same line
Yeah.
item rather than creating a new one with a different name.
Okay, any questions on that one?
No.
We'll move to the Cume Courthouse budget.
We increased the repair and maintenance, as it seems like that's a daily conversation of something breaking down on all the buildings and equipment that we have, so we bumped it up with the increase in price. We're, again, guessing on the snow and mowing. That's kind of a really variable expense because it completely depends on the weather. The one thing I would like to note, I think you mentioned it last year, and I did some calculations, is just trying to keep that budget close to what the revenue for it will be, and based on, so for 22, looking at, hold the numbers up, and it should be around 232,000. Based on the increase that I've talked to you guys about, it should be around that 239, 240,000 for next year. So we tried to keep it in line with the revenue.
Yeah, that's the one that we have a pretty tight cash balance on, so we
Yeah.
needed to be pretty true to what our revenues were. The only other thing that I thought in that budget, Jordan, was given the investments we're making on the boilers and chillers in the building, do we need to keep the boiler maintenance so high?
So that's the annual maintenance for the.
That is the annual
Yes,
maintenance,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
I was trying to pull it up, but yeah, the 30,000 is roughly what that annual maintenance just for the boiler is.
Okay. Okay, any questions there? So that gets us to IT, and we do have Tim here if we need to get specific, but Jordan, if you want to walk through Bert, I'm sorry, go ahead.
One thing that is not there, and regretfully I've been working on, and I think it's a situation that we need to be aware of. We have a lot of records in multiple locations that need to be imaged or digitized or destroyed. And to move all of that stuff on the fourth floor and so forth, before we move boxes and so forth, we ought to be thinking about what it's going to cost us to kind of put those together. I've been working with a group to see about digitization of several departments at the same time of stuff that needs to be either destroyed or kept, whatever, but we have a mountain load of stuff that's going to start costing us to make copies of or images of or digitization to where it actually works. So, it's going to be a moving project. So just wanted to kind of keep that in mind as we go forward. We got a lot of stuff that needs to be in every department imaged and made work. So.
And you might elaborate, because the people that you've been talking to, if I'm not mistaken, are a local business, which
That's correct.
is pretty neat.
I've been talking with, it's called Document Mountain, and they're out of Kirkland. But they have been doing this business for like 25 years, and they're locally housed and locally based. So a group of good people that are really working. They do stuff with the state of Illinois. They do stuff with actually IU, and their profession is digitization of things and then making it streamlined for each department or each place that we have, so that if a person wants to go in and pull up, their marriage license, for example, rather than going, we can do it and then receive a fee that they pick up from the customer, and it's all automated. And then at the same time, it can be for each department that we're doing it, or we can put controls on it. So they've done a tremendous amount of work in the Kirkland area. They're kind of one of the partners that has done the revitalization of Kirkland. They already have a major staff that they're working with. So a good group of people, and right now they came in and looked at the auditors department to kind of give us an idea just in that department what it's going to take. But if you go upstairs, we have a tremendous amount of stuff that we need to put together, and each department's kind of going different directions. It'll be nice that we can maybe combine them and put them back in the same line. But at this point, I don't have numbers. It's still in the working stage, but that's something we're going to have. It would be nice if we don't have to take that stuff and put it somewhere else. It would be nice to have it on the computer with the various departments and destroy it rather than carrying it over and lugging it back and forth everywhere. So I'm still work in progress at this point.
Okay.
Thanks, Bert.
Tim, you want to come up here? I think you're more equipped to answer the IT budget.
Tim and I talked last week after the regular council meeting, and there was just a couple of kind of quick updates, and you might just mention those to the full council.
Overall, there's not a whole lot changed to the budget. The main ACCS line, that went up probably about 25,000. A couple of things we're looking at would be is we're trying to plan an archive server. So basically what that's going to do is archive all the email that go through our system. As we know, there's some counts that rotate frequently for jail officers and things, and so that way we're not retaining the whole account for years past. The email will be archived if ever need be that we need to pull something back from that. And the other with the jail camera system that's being deployed in the new cars, we're looking at an increase of bandwidth for the county to help sustain that a little bit better. The cars now record at much higher quality. Everything has to go to the cloud. It takes a lot more bandwidth to facilitate that in a shorter period of time instead of taking a whole day to offload a car. So that was really the only two things in that line. A small increase in labor cost just to try to adjust for next year. The firewall is what now also has like our cybersecurity stuff in it. So that is going to include the cost for Duo for next year, since that's something that we've just now deployed for this year.
You'll remember we talked about that earlier in the year, that was going to be a requirement for our liability insurance, steps that we needed to be taking to protect ourselves so that they would insure us.
Other than that, I think just a small increase on computer and peripherals. We did increase the fiber line just to bring the new annex online for next year. Other than that, I think pretty much no change.
Let's, I think it's actually under the council tab, but Jordan includes it in his very helpful spreadsheet. Let's look at landfill. What tab is this?
8.
8.
Couple things to note, in particular are the liability insurance and the workman's comp. And we worked with Todd Jackson to get kind of a ballpark estimate on what these increases would be on an overall 15 to 18% is what is kind of across the board expected. I'll talk about workman's comp first, why the increase is there. And it's essentially, how it's calculated works on a 3-year blended mod average, and our county average had been 0.98. So 1 is like the baseline level. So then if you're below 1, when the state calculates this, you typically have a cost that is lower than the average. Our 18, 19 years rolling off, we only had claims around 54,000 during that time. We're adding 21, 22, and the claims are closer to 140,000. So our mod factor is going to basically go from 0.98 up to 1.2. So instead of being below the average, now we're going to be 0.2 above the average. So that's going to increase our workers' comp insurance. In addition, we assumed the 10% that was discussed in terms of the raise, and so whatever the percent of raise is, your workers' comp's going up the same. So roughly, the work comp is up around 25% is what is in here budgeted, based on the modifier as well as the 10%. The liability, just based on what's happening in the marketplace, as well as we continue to add stuff, is somewhere in that 15 to 18% range.
You'll note we keep a line item in there for demolition of properties, and as we've always had a good working relationship with the commissioners, that if a property needs to go down, it needs to go down, come back to us, we'll deal with what we gotta deal with. We have lowered the fairgrounds repairs I guess, Jordan, why don't you just speak to that about how it relates back to the grandstand project?
Yeah, so obviously you guys have been budgeting for a time period to upgrade the grandstands, and as we've highlighted, that cost for that project came in essentially 3 times what we had budgeted, so it's kind of been put on the back burner. So it felt like maybe reducing that. The one thing I would like to highlight for that fairground repair is, I think it's on our end to have the conversation with the Fair Board as well as probably 4-H Extension, because those two offices kind of work together, but we get a lot of requests from them in terms of just stuff, and it adds up. I mean, if you look at the numbers annually, I mean, it looks like we give 40,000 to the fairgrounds, but when you factor in repairs, insurance, additional costs, it gets closer to 100,000 every single year. If you had just one line item for fairgrounds. So this way, rather than continuing to get a request, we're gonna, in my opinion, give them a number and say, hey, here's what you have to work from for the fairgrounds for any upgrade that needs done. That way they kind of have a target number instead of just this free-for-all that they can come and hand us a bill or invoice for anything that's done there, which is unfortunately happening at this current time. So.
Very good.
The other one that I guess I should probably mention, since it's a new item, it's called PR consultant, but I think communication would be maybe even a better term for it. As you guys are well aware, especially in this kind of social media world, that the county, we need to have a little bit better voice, and so we've tried to put the consultant in there that can help us in framing what is going on and telling the story of the county better for the public. And so that's essentially what that's in there for the county to get out there and tell what's happening, because people don't know. I mean, I can tell you, just yesterday I had 3 conversations in relation to the well drilling out there, and everything that I told them was stuff that we had mentioned in our public meetings, and I'm like, we've talked about this, and they're like, well, I don't watch that. And so we have to find a way to get communication with the citizens better of what we're actually doing, so that they see these things are going on. So that's kind of why that's in there.
Who would this be?
No clue on that.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah, similar to how HR is contracted out, I think, hold kind of an interview process and talk to them and figure out who fits best for us, and rather than obviously a full-time employee, someone that we just kind of contract with.
Very good. Thanks.
So taken all together, all those, the budgets that we've discussed so far have a net reduction of 3%, which is outstanding. And thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard work.
I guess the one
I
thing,
guess we didn't talk about cume cap. Let's hit cume cap real quick, which is right before landfill in our books here.
yeah, and I think really the only thing that we had in there is the Braden lease for the copiers. And the only highlight I would say on that, we're in a contract till the end of '23, but we're already working on getting some additional quotes because we've had some challenges with those to hopefully get a better piece of equipment, but also lower that cost going into '24. So it's set for '23, but we're gonna work to be better with it going into '24.
And this is a budget that's actually lower significantly year over year because last year we had the server replacement in there, which was a big ticket item that comes out for this year.
I don't know if we've mentioned it to the council. I know Alan was involved with it a little bit, but we went ahead and booked the fuel earlier than we normally do. So typically we'd wait till November or December, but just watching the future markets and kind of how things were trending here globally, we took a stab at trying to book it earlier. And what I know in talking with Alan, we had or my number was, I was expecting to be close to $5, right? Like double what we paid this year. We ended up getting the gas locked in for $3.46 and the diesel for $3.98. So both of those include the tax, so it's roughly 33 cents on the gasoline and about 52 cents on the diesel. But below that, and compared to that $5 number, that's close to, I want to say like $220,000 to $240,000. I'll call it savings, although it's technically not savings, but where I think it has value is that's $200-some thousand that you guys don't have to worry about for fuel that gets allocated somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know that I'd been to your meeting to mention since we've made that decision, but I wanted to update you on that as well.
And I do want to take some time before September to sit with you and let's try to figure out usage by department if we can, so that we can fine tune those numbers in the budget.
So we have it specific. So this year, instead of just sending one contract with a diesel amount and a gasoline, it's broken down specifically by every department. And so I just signed 30 pages here before this of each department's fuel.
So we'll wanna try to work with Stephen and the sheriff and
We're gonna
Rick
send them
and-
send them that contract so they see the quantity that they have booked.
And then we can fine tune that number in here instead of being high guesses.
Yep. So, and it accounts for the tax amount too, which I think at times maybe gets overlooked because people say we book it for $3.46, and so they calculate their budget at $3.46, not factoring in that there's a 33% or 33-cent tax
on it. Yeah.
Jordan, in the 04-13, the server replacement, so is that 20, is that for like a maintenance or?
Yeah, so that is just in there. Tim and I have been talking as you guys know, hopefully the construction over there will start, and rather than waiting till it's done, we figured the contractors may need internet over there. So we put a little bit in there to kind of, hopefully any IT issues, kind of pre-construction, we would have some money budgeted to take care of.
Okay, very good, thanks. Good.
Josh or Bert, anything you'd like to add? And I really appreciate all three of you being here today.
And I guess one last thing is it's not in the budget, but I want to bring it up. We received the opioid settlement money, and so I think that'll require setting up a fund. And it's over, I think 17 years is how we'll get payments. So let's see if I forget. I maybe don't have it in front of me, but what the amount was, I believe it's a substantial amount of money that we will receive. So yeah, here it is, $725,000 from 2022 to 2038 that we'll receive from this national opioid settlement. There's restricted funds, which I believe is what the fund will need to be set up, and there's enumerated things that they can be utilized on. So just kind of on your radar, but we should receive funds this fall for that. So we'll have to work to get a fund set up.
So we'll have to get with Tom and have him create the fund ordinance for us to approve. So those funds, would all of the funds go into that, or would there be a split between the restricted and the
There's a
unrestricted?
split, so there's an unrestricted amount that we're free to do whatever.
And it just goes into the general fund?
Correct.
Okay.
And then there's the restricted amount that needs the specific fund that has some specific items that it can only be used on. So just for reference, in '22, we're gonna get $43,902 unrestricted, and we're gonna get $102,439 restricted. So the first year is the largest, and then it kind of works on a bell curve. It starts lower, peaks in the middle, and then kind of drops off towards the end, so.
So it's not even?
No, no.
What is that, 15, 16 years?
I thought they said it was 17.
7?
Can't do math, 18, there we go.
Okay.
EMS directors, big smile.
Okay, any questions? Yes.
Ability services, and they would come before us here a while back. Are they not in the budget any place?
Yeah, I think they're in the council budget.
Council budget?
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Jordan.
Yep.
Thank you.
I skipped over the auditor. I'm sorry about that.
I'm not going anywhere.
Well, of the department heads that are in the room, we have Stephen with us, so let's just, let's jump down to EMS, which is tab number 10.
It's my first day.
Well, I wanna take a minute before we jump in to compliment Stephen on, this is his first go-around with the departmental budget in the new role of our first budget with a full-time EMS director. And I just wanna compliment him for, he and I have had multiple meetings, multiple discussions as we've worked through this, and I appreciate how seriously he's taken it, and I think we've got a good budget, and I'll let you work through it, but I think Britt would say the same thing. Britt and Stephen and I have worked a lot together trying to get a good budget here, so. And Stephen's been the driver. I haven't told him anything. He's just kind of presented it to me for review, so. Stephen, walk us through it.
Okay. So in the 01 line items, went ahead and put everyone in for the 10% raises. You also see RN/paramedic. So currently we have one dual credentialed provider working part-time for us. Not her words exactly, but through interpretation, she would work more if she got paid closer to her normal nursing salary. This is definitely not what nurses are making, but it does close the gap a little bit. So I included that as well. There's another provider who is dual credentialed that has expressed interest, and I think that if we go forward with this rate, they'll be more likely to come as well. Otherwise, for the paramedic and EMT PRN positions, I accounted for their hourly rates and working 48 hours per week. Right now, we have a couple, 3 PRN paramedics. I would say usually we get about 24 hours per week out of them, but I think some weeks we are covering 48, so I just wanted to account for that accordingly. And then EMT, same, usually about 24 hours per week, but some weeks we're pulling 48. So then the insurance.
Stephen, before you leave
Yep,
personnel, so we have a change in the numbers here, right? A number of personnel. There's more. There's going to be more base pay and less overtime and part-time pay. Let's walk through that real quick.
Okay. I guess I'll start with the change in numbers. So paramedic supervisor, we've traditionally budgeted for 4. I changed that to 3. That covers us for 6 days out of the week, and then I'm on call 24/7, but I'll just take that other day as the on-call person. And so change that to 3, and then that increased the paramedics from 10 to 11. And then EMTs, it was traditionally budgeted for 13, and then the 14th individual was just picked up through part-time and stuff like that. But because we're targeting to be fully staffed at all times, 14 is going to be our number.
And then that reflects in a lower part-time,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep. So yeah, if you see our part-time budget, I mean, year-to-date for part-time paramedic, we've used 20%, and EMT part-time with a $25,000 transfer to overtime, we've used 27%. So I significantly reduced both of those line items.
Very good.
Yeah, our idea was to be
Yeah, I'm
more,
glad that-
more appropriately
yeah.
staffed up front and not have to fill in so many gaps.
Yeah. And I will say, I mean, this is in a perfect world. Everybody is struggling with staffing shortages, especially healthcare. So we're doing our best to recruit and retain, but obviously we're still going to be spending overtime.
Okay, continue on. You were about to talk about something else. I can't remember where you were going.
Yeah, I was just going to mention the insurance. We adjusted those rates per recommendation from the auditor's office.
Okay.
To the O2 line items, tried to really slim everything down. Tried to go off of the percentages of what we've used year to date and kind of estimate what we're averaging in those expenses for the year and then produce those values. With gas and lube, we did increase dramatically with the expectation for next year. And then medical supplies and equipment, we're seeing anywhere from 10 to 15% increase in our supplies right now, so I increased that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Acumed, so the O3 line items, Acumed is our billing service that we contract with. They take 6% of all of our revenue, so expecting 1.4 million in revenue next year, that would produce us at 84,000 is
Okay.
what we'll owe them. EMT training, slimmed that back just a little bit, and then certification classes is a new line item that I included. So it's required for paramedics to have their ACLS and PALS, as well as all EMTs and paramedics have to have their BLS CPR to operate an ambulance in the state of Indiana. And so we have a instructor that we have staffed, and we worked out a agreement on what we would pay that individual. And so to staff those classes, that's how much that individual will be paid as a contractor for the year. And then the big one, the paramedic program, we are still grinding away on getting that up and running. It is an incredibly tedious project. We are coming close to the final steps for accreditation with the state as an advanced training institution, and then once we get that, we will be able to apply for the national accreditation. Part of that is going to be instructor wages, as well as we have to have a medical director for the program. And Stephanie Gardner from St. Vincent 86th Street, she has offered to be our medical director for the program. What she asked is $15,000, and that helps get us access to the facilities of St. Vincent, so 86th Street, Heart Center, as well as possibly Kokomo. She helps us navigate those as well as oversees the entire program.
Talk a little bit about, because we don't see it in the budget book, about the expected revenue that that program could generate.
Okay, so right now, the number that we're expecting for tuition is $8,000 per student. I would say it's fair to expect 15 students, but anywhere from 10 to 20. So I think it's fair to assume we'll bring in about 80 to 160,000 in generated revenue. Obviously, you subtract the 38,000. I still think that there's the opportunity to make about 50,000 for the county at minimum. So high end 100.
Okay, at first I thought it was just training for us, but we're talking about going out and training other communities and,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah, so it would be open to all surrounding counties or the state of Indiana, any EMT that wants to advance to become a paramedic.
Okay.
This gives us a great opportunity for recruitment as well as retention. You know, the state of Indiana is not producing many paramedics right now. And unfortunately, 50% of the accredited programs are Ivy Tech community colleges. And so the closest one is Kokomo, and then dispersed from there is southern Indiana, Indianapolis, and northern Indiana. I want to be careful with what I say in regards to this, especially on a recorded line, but I will just say we're not seeing the return as hoped from programs like that in terms of paramedics being produced. So the hope is to produce a program that actually produces paramedics to our community as well as the state of Indiana.
So are you writing this curriculum?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so we're following the national, the COAMPS accreditation guidelines. And so Dolores Paul has offered to be the program head. She is a flight nurse, paramedic, lot of knowledge and experience. And so she's going to be our program head, and then I am going to be partnering with her to be faculty. So it'll be Dolores and I that are instructing.
But it's a good opportunity, I think,
Well, it sounds like it.
in multiple ways.
Yeah, I know that I have at least 3 staff members that have said that if we put the program on, they will be participating. So that would, it would actually exceed our staffing numbers for paramedics, which I think that's a good thing, but.
So
Is this eligible for student loans? Coming up with $8,000 might be kind of tough for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is eligible for, is it FAFSA? Is that the right abbreviation? Yeah, okay, FAFSA, yeah. They are eligible for that as well as student loans, and then we'll also offer a payment plan for them, so. And then something Alan and I have discussed is that county employees would receive a lower tuition rate. What we've done previously is, what Clinton County has done previously is for paramedics that, or EMTs that go to paramedic school, they've paid for their tuition. And it's been signed with a contract that after, they would stay a minimum of 2 years. It didn't quite produce the return. For the duration that I've been in Clinton County, I have not seen that return be beneficial. So I think for us as a service, I think it's in our best interest to recoup the revenue where we can and then offer them, the position, and as long as they're willing to stay, that's fantastic, and we'll welcome them, but to bank on them staying for 2 years, I don't think it's worth our investment. So I think anywhere from a 10 to 20% tuition reduction is more than fair for our full-time staff. So,
Stephen, where do you see the training being held?
so all the classes will be held at our EMS building. We have a really, really nice training room. It'll easily fit 25 people. Projector, whiteboards, everything. And then we're working to partner with IU Arnett and Lafayette, as well as finalize the partnership with St. Vincent, Indianapolis, for them to be our clinical field sites. And then that will enable our students to go to the ER for clinicals, the ICU, OB, and surgery. And then for ambulance, we will be the primary source for them to do their ride-alongs and third rides. But we'll also be willing to partner with other ambulance services, because the fire departments send EMTs to paramedic schools all the time. So I know, like Pike Township and down in Indianapolis, they're constantly having paramedic students come and ride. And so, if another service is trying to do the same thing we're trying to do and produce paramedics, you're fine. I think that it's fair to allow those students to have the opportunity to experience their paramedic learnings through the culture and service they're going to be working with, because their protocols may be different than ours and their community they're serving may be different than ours, but ultimately I think it's a great opportunity for recruitment.
I can tell you where the Franklin Fire Department's interested.
I think it's a great opportunity to show off our facilities.
Oh, yeah.
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 Get a payback from that investment.
Yeah. Like I said, I do want to really emphasize that it is
Good.
hard to get it up and running. There's very few accredited programs throughout the state of Indiana, so it is very hard. There's no county-based programs that are accredited. They're all hospital-based or college-based. So what we're trying to do is, it's an uphill fight, but I think we have all the resources and all the documentation, and we're headed in the right direction. So I definitely think that it's something we're going to be able to pull off.
Commissioner Weaver.
I think our director here, his vision and leadership into this kind of situation, is kudos, because I think, like Stephen said, it's kind of a step above what most people are doing. So I think Stephen has worked real hard in kind of putting these pieces together, which in my opinion gives us an excellent opportunity to show off our community and, hopefully pick up additional paramedics as we go along. So I think kudos to Stephen for what he's done.
Yeah, one of the greatest things we can do would be to pay people at their regular rate and not at time and a half because of overtime. And so numbers being fully staffed is so important in this budget. So I commend you for taking the actions to make sure we're there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Commissioner Gewitz?
Yes.
Yeah, well, you mentioned about the fire department is looking into this.
I think we would be, we would be interested in sending students
Okay.
to class as well as training.
Yeah, we know, yeah. Do you think that they'll ask for them to stay longer or anything like that, or is it just gonna be, this is a
It's
benefit?
possible, we already have a built-in system like that if you leave within first 3 years you're hired, you have to return some of the investment that the city's made into you.
Oh.
We've had a lot of success with that because we don't have anybody leave.
Oh.
Departments.
Okay.
So, surprised to learn that we didn't have the success here with that. So when we proposed that and implemented that program several years ago, we thought we'd get the return on it, so.
Thank you.
To conclude, I appreciate the kind words, but I do want to conclude that topic with, I can't guarantee
Right.
we're going to make it happen. I will do everything that I can, and Dolores is working extremely hard too. I just can't guarantee it, but I like beating my head against a brick wall, so we'll figure it out. If it's not this year, maybe next year, but we'll get it going, so.
Okay, any questions on any of these budget items? You good? Okay. Okay.
Through the remaining 03 line items, we cut back our medical IT line item. We had to spend some this year and kind of eat up our budget on medical IT this year due to some computers that we needed to upgrade. Our medical record charting system was no longer compatible with some of our older tablets, so we had to upgrade. That won't be an issue moving into next year, though.
Okay.
Informational material, we haven't really used much of that, but as we continue to expand the services that we provide to the community, it's going to be important that we offer educational material to our staff, whether it be vent books or medical textbooks and things for our staff to review. So we're going to start to utilize that a little bit more to provide some additional resources to our staff besides the training that we already do. Utilities, I know that Commissioner Brewer was referencing the increase in utilities expected by Duke. I will just acknowledge this was a failure on my behalf, as I didn't think of that moving forward. But looking at our 2022 budget, I do see that we've only used about 50% year to date. So I think we have plenty of wiggle room going into next year.
Okay.
Maintenance contracts, office repairs, not big changes there. The vehicle repairs, we've pretty much burned through our vehicle repairs line item for this year, so I increased it for next year. These ambulances, as they become nicer, they become more expensive. And so as appreciative as we are for the very nice equipment, fortunately, we do see an increase in the upkeep of them. So just planning ahead for next year on that. Cot maintenance and vent and monitor maintenance, something that is required by Zoll, which is our vent and monitor company. We have to have yearly maintenance on both of those items, and so this will cover that.
Stephen, a question that I've always wondered, and I'm not sure we've ever talked about, but why would EMS issue a refund? Why do we have an EMS refund line item?
Okay, so that's 090020. Okay.
Yeah, it's like we just kind of have a placeholder in there, but I've never understood why we would refund.
So for the EMS refunds, patients can apply for a an exemption from their bill if due to like low income status.
Okay.
And so it's rarely utilized, but I know, you know, I actually just approved one the other day, somebody that they didn't have any means of income and they already had hospital bills on top of it. And it's like, you know, it's a small number, but it provides, you know, a great service for that citizen. And then, you know, another one that somebody stepped on a patient's glasses on a scene and they broke their glasses. So we bought them a new pair out of that EMS refund line.
Okay, that makes sense. All right.
So you make the determination?
Yep.
Okay. very
Yeah,
good.
they have to go through an application process through Medicare or Medicaid, and then they forward all of their bank records and statements to us, and we have the ability to go through and determine whether or not this individual truly does need this financial assistance or not, and then we'll write off their bill.
Very good.
The ambulance lease, it is an increase from this last year. That's just to account for the 3-year lease that we have with our 2 ambulances. If you see or saw earlier this year, our ambulance lease, we had only used about 100,000, so we had 150-some thousand left. Well, the way that it was budgeted was that there was going to be this year where we had a significant outstanding in that line item, whereas this is going to ensure that we are paying the exact amount every single year to Osage for our ambulances. So just expect that same amount next year and the year after until we pay off these 2 new ambulances. That's what I have in the 1151,
I was just going to make note, the only other item I think is you had an equipment item in the public safety income tax budget.
Yep. Out of the 1170 fund, I'm asking for 20,000 for IV pumps. It will help us streamline continual sedation for patients that we have intubated, as well as patients that require vasopressor support. It allows us to give the exact dose, whereas right now, we're eyeballing it. And though it is safe, it's not perfect, and I expect that. So I would really like to get our service there.
Okay.
Stephen, I'm sorry, on the 03084, maybe I missed it because I was writing about the paramedic program.
Yep.
The $10,000 asked for the EMT service training.
Yes.
And it doesn't look like there's been very much used of that this year.
Correct. The reason why that has not been used very much is because our EMT program starts in October. And then we will start paying teachers' salaries out of that.
Very good.
So that'll start in October, and next year we'll have, it'll go from the beginning of January to April is what we're expecting, and then it'll also start back up in October again. So year-to-date, we've used, 5,628, so we have about 9,000 left in that. So I expect us to go through that through October. Previously, we weren't paying instructors out of that line item, so the fact that we have about 10,000 left, I expect that's what we're going to go through next year and this year. So.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Good budgets.
Anything else? Okay.
Good
Thank
job.
you, Stephen.
Good job.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. We have Extension with us, Karen. We're recording and broadcasting on YouTube, and so that's why we're trying to have everybody go to the microphone, because that's what lets the viewers hear the department head.
And as you've requested in the past,
Very good. So Extension is tab 11 in your book.
Well, we got a little bit of break. Ed Cripe.
He texted me. Yeah.
And so as you can see, I brought some of my staff with me. So Bethany Pearlie, Program Assistant, Adam Shanks, A&R Educator. So. But as you know, it's pretty straightforward. Extension Contractual Services is driven by Purdue. And then we have held flat on everything else except we did put in the 10% raise that the county approved for our county staff.
Okay.
So the handout is what you're getting, the services that we've done and the impact we've had in the county over the year.
I need to make a note. I put a number in the wrong line. That co-op agent salaries should be down in the 03000.
Right, yeah, contract.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's the correct amount, I just put it in the wrong line. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's
I
okay.
just wanna make sure they realize that I messed up.
I was assuming that was the deal.
Yeah.
Well, I almost feel bad that we made you come over here.
Well, it's nice to see everybody. We're trying to get back into the groove of coming back into meetings and things, so. But yeah, mine's pretty simple compared to
Mm-hmm.
what went before it.
We had a request there at the recent meeting, I don't know if it was, I guess that would have been July, I think, about trying to help with some of the programming for the summer classes.
Yes.
Would that be appropriate if we decided to do that, to add it to this budget, or is that something that should go in a different place?
You know what? So we've been talking about that. If we handle that, we would run that program a little differently. Learning Network, that was their brainchild for years. And so Clark maybe can speak on that. I think he still sits on the board there, but,
No, I haven't been on the board for,
oh, really?
So that
Couple
summer
years.
programming is not through Extension
We,
directly?
we partner.
Are you okay?
So they're the fiduciary, so they go out and get the money, but if we're the fiduciary, that's fine. And they hire the teachers. So they use our building, which we share. Adam actually has taught, I've taught before. It's 3 whole weeks in June. So it's a crazy busy place, but it works out great for the kids. It's kids that we aren't reaching in 4-H. It's a lot of the inner city kids. We had 411 kiddos. Bethany ran a lot of that, actually. I mean, so,
So it's, I know Louisa's what it's.
do you want to stand up here, Bethany? They're,
So like Louisa told you guys in the past, that is a $30,000 program that they try really hard to go out and get those funds for. And they're lucky enough to partner with the Frankfurt schools, which eat a lot of that teacher cost, because it costs $500 per teacher per class, which they can do 2 a day. So it's $1,000 per teacher possibly if they stay all day just to be able to teach those kids. So there is a lot of income that comes with that. And so far, they've cut it close and had to cut some things because they haven't had the income that they need. So if you're willing and able, yeah, sure, we'll take it and we will be able to help them with it more.
Yeah, I just
So-
wasn't sure what the proper mechanism would be to, whether it was to do it through
Because
this
we do
budget.
pay through our side, we obviously give all of our services as part of it. We helped with Susie Ryan being able to be a part of it. Lucy takes on a lot of extra burdens during that time to be able to help with that program as well. So, I mean, yeah, if there's,
if you want to add it in, we can take it and run, and we'd still partner with the Learning Network. That's not a problem,
Well,
obviously.
part of my thinking is if we give it to a group like that, there has to be a contractual agreement that demonstrates what the return to the county's investment is, whereas I think if it went through your budget, it could say youth programming,
Exactly.
and it,
Yep.
yeah, we've already got the contract, we've already, it seems easier, but I do.
just make it, can we make it like,
Yeah, if we did that, I'd want to make sure that it was added as specific to that use, but
Absolutely. Yeah, we could do that.
Instead of having to take out of, for Susie,
Right.
for that part of it,
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
I
we
think
don't
it is
have
too.
it
We
advertised.
hadn't thought of that. I mean,
We don't have it
We can talk
advertised
to them.
anywhere, so that's something that I
Right.
wanted to bring up to the group later, is that we'd had that request and whether we wanted to try to find a place for it, but if that was the pleasure of
It
the
is a
council.
huge impact to the youth of Flint County.
It absolutely is.
Huge. We had over 400 kids this year come to it, so it's a lot of work, like
Yeah.
county fair, but it's a huge, great, positive impact.
it absolutely is. And those kids need someplace to go. And then we can teach them something while they're there. But yeah, so as she was saying, they run 2 classes a day, so they're there from 9 to noon, and then they can turn around and be there from 1 to 4. And if they stay all day, we feed them lunch.
Okay.
And they also have snacks and things like that, so.
Well, I'm sure we'll discuss that more later, but that's helpful.
And it is
Context.
30,000 is what it has been, so, I mean, costs go up, but we get ConAgra to donate
Mhm.
a lot of the food, the snacks, puddings and things. So,
Okay, all right.
What
Any
was their
questions?
ask from the council?
I want to say it was 11 or 12,000
Yeah, I
is
think
what
so.
they asked.
oh, okay. They didn't ask for the whole thing?
No.
You're
It's okay.
You're okay.
Yeah, they had a worksheet that they calculated what their other funding sources were projected to be.
And as she said, the schools of Frankfurt cover the teaching, so the teachers' salaries.
A lot of Frankfurt teachers, because they will, any Frankfurt teachers, they'll cover us.
And sometimes we
I see.
we'll have to go out and hire other teachers and.
Well, the request did include giving raises to the teachers.
Okay.
Part of that.
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah, it was in there.
That's part of their overall budget.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but they had circled certain things that they were gonna earmark if we wanted to donate. That's what, that would be helping. And I think it was, part of it was the instructor salaries.
And we also use Philippi. They're the ones that always bus the kids, so that's a huge,
I think that was
Cost?
another part
That's
of
a
it.
$3,000 cost
Transportation.
right there,
yeah.
just the buses.
And so we use our facility. We've gone to the fairgrounds. We've been using that.
There's 7 locations.
Camp Column. We've used Clinton Prairie. We've used
The
different
airport.
schools, the airport.
Fairgrounds, Washington.
Yeah.
There's 7 locations that we
So we bus the children. And then the children in Frankfurt, we even pick up and do things for, so.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Any
Thank you.
other questions?
No, any questions for anybody? All right, thank you all for
Okay.
coming over.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
this. Thank you for
Yeah.
this, Karen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. I want to hit EMA real quick because Daryl's not going to be here today, but I was, Jordan and I both were on the call for the EMA Advisory Committee. So that's tab number 9. So I can kind of speak to this budget myself. So EMA is jointly funded. We do have a contractual agreement with the city. The city pays for 1/2 of the salaries of those top 3 positions. And then we get a reimbursement from the state that formerly was the other half of those salaries, but now they've changed their structure, so I don't have my notes, but it's gonna be a lesser amount than that full other half of the salaries. I wanna say it ended up being somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 or 40%. So now we are taking on a little bit more of the expense as a county than we did previously, but it's just due to a state decision. Daryl's budget, as you can see, is down year over year, primarily because last year we got him a vehicle and some equipment, the skid steer that he's using out there. So with that being removed, we're down pretty considerably, down 34% year over year. But looking at the otherwise, it's a pretty level budget, even some reductions in some items that he submitted on some of the maintenance items and those kinds of things. So there wasn't really much, he did not increase his fuel budget, but kind of like Stephen had referenced on his, he was already high, so that was intentional. He decided to keep it level, and thought he could absorb the higher cost. But as so many of our budgets are, the highest percentage of the budget is in the personnel. So Daryl said he could be with us in September, and we'll let him address anything else that he'd want to bring to the county's attention, but to the council's attention. But you know, when you have a 34% reduction, I'm not going to speak out too much.
No.
I'll just we'll take it and move on. Coroner also reached out. He's in a training today. Jake, I think maybe you got a little bit more communication from him than I did. So let's look at tab number 7. for the coroner's budget. Many of these things I think we've talked about in his various updates over time. Jake, did he mention anything in specific?
Yeah, it's in the mortuary cot, $3,500.
Mm-hmm.
He said he is working on a grant, to secure a grant to help pay for that.
Okay.
He raised the autopsy line to $40,000. And then the 10% increase for the salary, but he said the deputy coroners, he put that up, another $2,000, but, they're fine with the $250 per call out.
That was something we talked about earlier in the year.
And then the other thing that he mentioned was, supplies for the raised autopsy supplies, 40,000, so.
Yep.
Being that we are doing autopsies in our own building now.
Right. You might text him if you've got him there. The only question that I was gonna have wasn't about anything on the expense side. I was just curious as to whether we were actually creating any revenue with the new facility.
Yeah.
I was just curious about that. And we may not be yet, and maybe we won't, but I wanted to ask that question of him. But otherwise, okay, but otherwise, I felt like that was a good budget,
Right.
so. I think Ed's done a great job of keeping us up to date all along.
The mortuary cot, I've talked to him about it, been on several calls with him. He's still got the old school steel frame, raise it up, have to make sure the legs are kicked out to where they, he's looking to getting one that's much like what EMS uses, the electric, the easy up, easy down, easy into the vehicle. So,
We can talk about it in September, but I wonder if we couldn't, if the funeral homes wouldn't all donate money for something like that, as they tend to be generous,
right.
so. Okay. We'll let Ed speak to it in September, but I don't see anything in there that was a particular note or question.
I have just a general question. I've never paid attention to it, but now that the cost of fuel, but with what the commissioners sign for their contracts, so when everybody else has this in the budget for their fuel, is it?
They did not know that number yet.
Okay, but
So
is it from the commissioners, what they're buying? That's what
Correct.
everybody is.
So that's what I was trying to say to
Okay.
Jordan, and we've tried to make an effort to get it fine-tuned more for the department. So now we'll be able to go to the department's head and say, based on your past usage, because everybody buys with a card. Everybody has an assigned card number, so we can track by department so we can go back and say, you use 70,000 gallons, and at the new contract price, if you use 70,000 gallons next year, it's gonna be X number of dollars.
Yeah.
So I wanna go back before September and fine tune all these fuel numbers now that they know the contract amount. Normally, we don't get that contract number before we adopt the budget in October. Like Jordan said, it's usually late October or November that we do the following year. We were both very concerned about the potential impact of doubling the fuel budget, and so when we got a break in fuel prices and we had an opportunity to, it's an increase, no doubt, it's an increase, but it's significantly less than our worst fears. So is it possible that we didn't get the bottom, or that we could have done it lower later? Yeah, it's possible, but I think there's a lot of value in us being able to budget it with a more known figure. So that was kind of the way we're gonna handle it. So we'll hopefully be able to take these numbers and be a little more specific in September.
Yeah.
We just haven't gotten to that point yet.
Very good.
Okay, anybody need a break, or do you wanna just kinda keep forging ahead and call some people over, or?
I got a response.
Okay, what's Ed
He
say?
says we've not generated any revenue yet. Carroll County would like to use our facility when they have a call-in, the southern part of their county. Our county has saved this year so far $5,500 by having our own facility.
Okay, there you go, that's what, penny saves, a penny earned, you know? Okay,
I have Chris and, Rick are on their way. I don't know if you wanna go ahead and do like the auditor or something.
yep, let's do the auditor, and we could even tackle the council budget if we want. So auditors tab number 3. Britt, the floor is yours.
Just 10% increases, everything else was pretty much the same.
Okay.
Pretty short and sweet.
Okay. I'll make a note just so that you guys know, but we do have in the 030011, the data pit stop, kind of the annual retainer fee that we pay to Darren Bates and his company. I do utilize that. I've emailed him asking for questions. He's essentially data analytics. And so,
He's helped us a lot with our conversion for Exxon.
yeah. So we get our money. That's not a name we hear about very much, and I just wanted you to know that that's money well spent. We get our value there. Okay. I wish they were all like that. Let's flip and look real quick at the council. We've already covered cume cap and landfill with the commissioners. So that's tab number 8. So this is where we capture the group health insurance. You'll see we've raised that. We gave the guidance to increase 12%. I'll report that the insurance committee had our first meeting with LHD Benefits, our consultant, last week. They said that our numbers for the claims history for year to date and really going back for our entire time with IU Health has been very favorable. We've had a claims history of about 70%. So in other words, IU Health in their insurance has paid out 70% of the money we've paid in premiums, and their target is always 75. They need 25% for overhead, profit, those kinds of things. So with that being said, there's really not a lot of pressure based on our group performance for them to raise our rates. Having said that, industry-wide, there's tremendous pressure to raise rates, and so LHD made 2 projections, one that was based primarily on our history, and then one that was based more on trying to work in some of those industry norms or industry-wide increases. The projection, just based on our use, was in the 6 to 7% range, and going, kind of factoring in some of those industry-wide influences, they were at that 12, 13%. So they did say that IU Health had committed to getting a renewal number to us by September. It sounded like, I think their date was September 15th, and we meet the 14th, 13th and 14th, I think. So I told Bob to see if they could speed that up by a day or two so that we had a real number. But we would definitely have it by October. So I guess I came out of that meeting feeling optimistic.
Yeah.
The other thing that Bob said that was very positive in my mind was that whatever number they give us, they're willing to lock in for 2 years. So meaning that next year we would have a 0. We would know today, going into the next year's budget, that we could lock in a 0, which is so valuable to us. So kind of stand by on that big number, but what we have in here, what you're seeing is that 12% increase. I think. Yeah. Okay. John, there's ability services that you referenced earlier, the 030002, the 52,000. You'll see that the amended budget for 2022 is 78. That's where we added the 26 that they didn't take as their last payment of 2021. It got carried over to 2022. So that's why, 2021 is at 26 and 2022 is at 78, but it still works out to the 52. We have a contractual increase with LHD, the benefits consultant. It goes up a little bit every year by the contract, so you'll see it raises a little. We kept our Baker Tilly $10,000 in there. That's if we'd kept that in there whether we wanted to update the comprehensive plan, the comprehensive budget review, or for anything else that we would need them to do. Note on the second page there, so one thing I've circled that we need to actually remove from this budget, and I'll let Brett maybe speak to this just a little bit. We determined last year we were really doing this incorrectly with our including the road bonds in the council budget, so somehow this one slipped by us. You'll see that the 2021 sewer and water bonds, the 040004, has been zeroed we should do the same thing to the road bond, and it just kind of got by us here. But if you'll look, I think that's in the back of the council tab, you have two new pages. And there's an individual budget page for the sewer bond and the road bond. And the reason for that is that the way the revenues that we've committed to support those bond payments are the certified shares that we get, the income tax dollars that are labeled as certified shares. So when those come in every month, they never hit county general. The amount of money that supports these payments gets siphoned off and put into these two funds, Fund 4600 and 4601, I think, yeah. So they never actually hit the general fund. So that's why we needed to pull them out of the council budget, which is a general fund budget, and reflect it more accurately by showing these two, we essentially have two new funds. So we do this for transparency. I wanted you to see what those payments are for next year. So the road bond, $440,000 with the $2,000 administrative fee, and then the sewer and water, our first full year of payments, $687,000.
So does that mean we're double advertised?
Well, I don't think we have to actually advertise this, do we?
Oh.
Britt?
Not for the,
But this is advertised.
It is advertised, so one of the things Britt and I talked about is it's not the end of the world because it gives us a cushion. Because when we take that down to zero, we're over advertised immediately by the amount of that payment, so.
Okay, that's what I meant.
that
Yeah.
would be over, I would
Yeah.
guess, and under, so.
But you can zero that on the council budget.
Okay.
So the key thing is that
Gotcha.
it's 6 to 1, a half dozen of the other. We reduce it out of the council budget, but we're also reducing our revenues by the same
Yes.
amount because it never went into the county general account, so. But I wanted to make sure there was a page in the book so that you guys got to see on an annual basis what those payments were. Okay. Any question that anybody has on the council budget? Ours is pretty much it's very mechanical. It's just kind of things that we have to pay. No questions?
Well, hold on. So the 04002, the road bond is being moved to 030001.
Well, the 040002 is being zeroed out.
Zeroed out.
It's not in there.
But that money is going to that,
It's gonna go to this new fund.
is that part of,
That's
general?
Fund 4600.
right,
Outside of county general.
right.
Yep.
And then the Fund 4601 was
Is the sewer and water bond.
sewer water bond?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
But this was already established.
Yeah, we just
Yes.
didn't
Yes.
report it right last year
Okay.
in the budget book.
Okay,
Compared to the way the mechanics of how it actually worked.
very good.
And so this was something that Baker Tilly caught and brought to our attention that we just needed to report it. It has to do with how it goes into Gateway, the state reporting system. So it doesn't change anything we already knew,
Yes.
Jeff. It's just how we're showing it in the book. I
Absolutely.
just wanted to make sure you understood
Yep.
that we'd made a change there.
Okay.
Cume cap and landfill, we talked about briefly with the commissioners, but they're in the council tab. If there was anything that, we went over too fast that anybody had a question about, now's the time to bring it up. I'll bring up, again, that vehicle that we've, in the past, bought vehicles for area plan, for the coroner's vehicle. We've had several vehicles that have come out on a almost annual basis from the landfill budget. So we do have in the past, that had been, the baseline number that we started with was 27,000. So just because of the cost of vehicles going up, we increased that to 35. And in the surveyor's case, his vehicle would cost more than that, and he was gonna pay for the upcharge out of his user fee.
Very good.
So this year is the surveyor's car.
Correct.
Last year was Daryl's.
Right. But Daryl, we actually ended up keeping out of in his budget because we had the money in the general fund to do it. So that's why there's no there was no,
Well, I looked at that, but it didn't look like we expended it in Daryl's budget.
oh, really?
Yeah. Go back and look at it. No.
Yeah, I missed that, Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not been
He did- he-
spent.
I thought he got it. Did he get a truck?
You getting a truck?
Is he just ordered it and it's not
I
in?
do not know.
It's probably just not, it's probably just
Well,
not.
okay, maybe.
It's in his budget and it probably just hasn't been paid out yet. We've got,
Good point.
yeah, it's probably been ordered and he's waiting
Okay.
on it like every other vehicle.
I just saw a zero. Oh, it's not over with yet.
Yeah, the cume cap was the one that was down significantly because of the server replacement. I would maybe have you put a little star here that if we get down to the end of the budget and we feel like we need to make a cut or move something, we do. I feel like we've got a little room here that we could move an item somewhere from another part of the budget to cume cap if we needed to, since we are light. I don't know what that would be yet, but we'll see when we get to the end whether we even need to. Okay.
Anything on seated?
Oh, seated, yeah, thanks, Clark. I knew I was forgetting that. I wanted, Britt, did we get an updated economic development budget? I noticed that was the same number. Or did Shan actually submit the same number? Okay. Otherwise, it's essentially the same year over year. It's got our two previous bond payments, the one for the original infrastructure out to 450 from 2009, so we're well over halfway on that one, and then the County Road 375 project, which is the 20. So the 2017 seeded bond is actually the refinanced 2009 bond. So that's the infrastructure and the water tower out to 450. The 2014 bond is the County Road 375 West bond. So on the 2017 one, we get approximately half of that payment, a little less than half of that payment comes from the city. So when they get their seeded distribution, they write a check to us and it's used, so we count that as part of our revenue that we have available to make those bond payments. Okay.
So I noticed we didn't budget anything on the wastewater ban payment. What changed
So
there?
yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Let's talk about that real quick. So that was a one-time deal. That's why it's not budgeted again. So
Okay.
you'll recall that the sewer and water project began with the short-term borrowing, the bond anticipation notes, right? And we got the money, we paid for the project, and then we did the long-term bonds later. When we did the long-term bonds, we had been approved for the $3 million grant from the federal government, the EDA grant we've talked about. But at that time, we had only been paid 2.2, whatever the difference between 3 million and the 731,000 that we hadn't received all the 3 million yet, but we had to pay off those short-term notes. So we subsidized, we did the long-term debt issue, and that left us short the amount of money we had not yet received from the federal government. So we advanced that out of CDIT.
Okay.
We just got word last week that we've been approved for the remainder of that payment, so that's gonna
That'll
come
come
in.
back
We'll
into
reimburse
CDIT.
this CDIT fund for that money that we advanced.
Good deal.
Good job.
So that process took years to get $3 million. It was unbelievably burdensome, but we got it. So we got every penny of it. Okay, I'm glad you caught that because I did want to make you aware of that. Okay. I'm not sure who came in first. If you guys all know who came in, what order you all came in, was Rodney first? Okay, Rodney will go Health Department. Tab 13. Hey, Rodney, we've been trying to have everybody go to the podium so that the people watching on YouTube can hear you.
All right. We always like to comply, if possible.
Just be careful what you say.
Yes. Well, that's always the case.
All right, well, we got a little bit into, your budget with all of the grants and all that kind of stuff at the regular meeting last week, but this is the regular budget, the main budget. So walk us through if there's anything you feel like there's a
Well-
change or of note or things we need to understand.
Sure. Well, with your guidance, of course, we went and projected the 10% on wages, on salaries, hourly figures. The rest of the budget, except for I think 2 or 3 items here. I want to verify which they are. 2 items that were added. The rest of the budget, except for 1 other item, we held or reduced. So we have, as is the case, time's starting to change, and we've requested to have the addition of a part-time health officer because our current health officer served over 38 years, and we foresee in the very short future that we need to plan for that. So that was the need. That was the request there from the board and from.
And do we know who that'll be?
There have been individuals that are interested, and I think that the commissioners are aware of the individuals that they are considering. I think it comes out of our board first and then approved by the commissioners. So there has been an individual that has been talked to and identified, yes.
So your board is viewing this as a succession plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Much like any public health nurse, there are a lot of nurses out there, but it's a huge difference between a nurse and a public health nurse. The same is true of doctors and a health officer.
Okay.
And to have a plan to give some sort of indoctrination to that new one with all of the knowledge and all of the expertise of your old one, that was actually what Dr. Tharp came into many, many years ago. I believe Dr. Erlo was the health officer at that point, and they did this same process when Dr. Tharp came aboard.
Okay.
So,
good.
Because he covered a span of 38 years or more, we're just not as familiar with that process there. So the other item in there that you'll see is a partial, and I made mention of this a couple times in council and commissioner meetings, that we have, when you go back to the free immunization clinic that we had at the hospital for over 30-some years as well, most of the time that was a partnership with the hospital at the time and our department, i.e. that meant staffing as well. Over the course of time, specifically the last 8 to 10 years, that support from any of the entities that are there operating the hospital has gone down to no support as far as staffing. So for a couple of years there, we had a part-time or a nurse that was part-time immunization there, doing all the work without any assistance whatsoever, and at one time she had 2 assistants. So what we had done in the last 4 years is applied for a grant that allowed for an immunization clerk to be rehired. We did that through an immunization grant through the state, but that grant's very competitive and isn't always guaranteed. After 4 years of reaffirming that position's critical to getting our immunization numbers and our flow of work through that clinic, and now that we have it under our same roof, that responsibility is even larger for them because they are doing more of the immunizations. I'm trying to work her into, or that position into regular 1159 funding through a process of working her partially off the grant and transitioning her into that role. So this ask here of 5 is about 1/3 of what her salary normally is of a year.
Okay.
And then I was just anticipating to kind of move it, transition it over. So that's the other ask. We did sign a contract with IoT and working with them on website maintenance, so we did reduce any website maintenance fees that we had currently been paying. It was $1,000 and I reduced that. Everything else I held pretty much steady. at what last year's budget figure was. The only exception would be that food pantry entry line, and that figure, even though I increased it, is nowhere near. Unfortunately, the cost of mobile food pantries right now is astronomical in comparison to 3 or 4 years ago. So that's basically a small increase in comparison to what the price has been for them lately. And that's my synopsis. Like I said, I held everything else pretty much steady, or not reduced it. I did reduce extra help in translation. That was $1,500, and we zeroed that out for now, as we're using a grant to pay for some of that at the current time.
Okay. It's got to be a good feeling to actually have some resources in the bank
Yeah. Yeah, it
compared
really
to the way
is.
we've been in the past at times.
Certainly, and again, this is the beginning of the 8th year now. Now we finally get opportunity to be looking at, a 2 to 3 to 5 year plan on what we're going to do with, obviously, the windfall financing that we've gotten, as well as, assess what we need for the community as well. So, but certainly it's been a long run. So,
Yeah. Okay, any questions?
I had good at the bottom of my paper.
Yeah.
That was a good budget.
Yes.
Kudos also to that department, because 8, 9 years ago, as you know, we were kind of off rail.
Mhm.
And at this point in time, they have moved through, and in the last 2 years, kudos with them and the extra burden they've had with COVID and so forth. But at the same time, funding has continued to grow in the right spots and so forth, so kudos to
Yeah.
Rodney and his staff too.
Yeah, I'd echo that, Rodney. The community owes you a debt of gratitude that they don't even understand they owe you. But we do, and so thank you for the work you put in.
And to touch upon that, it is as much my staff as well. They needed the
Right.
direction, and they needed the leadership there at the time to perform their duties. But it is the one opportunity I've gotten to take whatever I learned when I was at the state for 7 years and bring back and give back to our community. And I served during H1N1 at the state and statewide, and was in charge of many of those response activities. But the feeling of being here at the hometown level during COVID was much more fulfilling as far as I was concerned. So.
Well, good.
Good job.
Yeah. Good
Go
job.
go get a free cup of coffee.
I got part of it already, just in case in advance. So.
All right. Any questions for Rodney before we let him go? All right. Thanks, Rodney.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Chris is up. I always.
Rick has graciously agreed to let me jump ahead.
Okay,
you go.
so hang, let me get to the right spot here.
15.
Chris. 15, okay. County home.
Always a good budget.
Speaking of budgets that were fixed versus a decade ago, this guy is my favorite, you know.
Yeah, you hadn't heard that yet.
Well,
You haven't heard anything.
All right.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Chris.
So the 9th year this year, first time I'm going to ask for money, but it's a 1% increase. We're talking, I think, $5,500. Some of it I redistributed, 5 line items that I'm going to go ahead and terminate those and move that money into other areas. You know, everything's gone up. It's stuff like postage, county association fees, seminars, stuff like that. Stuff I'm going to just sacrifice and move that money. And then that extra $5,500 from you guys to plus up. A lot of it's utilities. Obviously, gas doubled, and it's killing us. There's 2 companies. One pumps it to us and owns the meter, and the other owns the gas. So it's just killing us. And you guys just approved, I think, a couple $1,000 just to help me hopefully get through the end of the year.
Chris,
Other
I'm
than
showing, my numbers don't match what you're saying, though. If I'm showing a $25,000 increase. Am I seeing that right? Or 30, no.
The only thing it'd be is the 10% increase.
Oh,
in
so
salary.
you're saying outside of the salary?
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes, sorry.
Okay,
Bob.
I misunderstood
Yeah,
what you were saying.
Exactly, yeah,
Okay,
just
I'm with you.
$5,500 outside the 10%.
I'm with you
If
now.
we graciously get that, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
But other than that, everything's in line.
So that's not in these salaries. These salaries are.
He's saying above 10% for the
Yeah.
salary, then the rest of the budget was only up to
Right, right.
5,500.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
just
Okay.
for additional
Yeah, I was
line
confused
items.
by that.
Yeah, okay.
Which is what we asked them to do, you know, to try to
Oh,
keep the
yeah?
rest of the
Yeah.
budget as tight as possible so
Yeah.
we could concentrate
Yeah,
on the
see where he
raises.
zeroed out some lines and
Yeah.
Yeah.
moved the money around.
Yeah, and that medication line item was like 15,000 when I came. They weren't even looking at people who had insurance or Medicaid or anything. They were just giving away the county's money to buy everybody's medication. And I was careful to research and make sure we weren't hurting anybody. The clientele we have now can afford with their copays. So the county's done paying for medications. Everybody's good. Couple things coming up. I did meet with the staff and the residents about us trying to be energy conscious because everything's gone up. Whether they're on board or not, I've at least done our due diligence before I come to you guys and ask for money. We're trying to do our part. Two things coming up next year. Bert's been working on the elevator contract. That'll go from 283 a month down to 225 if it goes through for us. And the after-hours fees are better than the current company. And then the boiler is right at that leg point to where the guy at Irish has been telling us the last few years we need to look into it. I had the guy that's working here at the company come out and look. And of course, we know the situation here in boilers and with the sheriff's department. That's something maybe next year, but we're talking close to 70K if it doesn't go up. We can manage, but that's something we need to look at. If there's a way to do that, that would put that building in even better shape. That thing's coming up on, I think, 22 years. It's right at that point.
Okay.
You guys know I'll use everything. That Vulcan range was 30 years old. I will get every inch out of it until the repairs start getting to be ridiculous,
Yes,
and then
yeah.
it's time to look at making a purchase.
Okay.
But that's where we're at.
Good budget.
I appreciate it.
Any questions for Chris?
No.
Keep it up.
Thanks.
All right, gentlemen,
That's
thank
all.
you guys for your time.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Alan, same situation, as you know, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, this budget was a disaster. And Chris has come in and moved us from a nightmare to a good situation. And, like you said, it's a very good budget, and he's done a good job out there.
Let's stay in touch on the boiler and,
Yeah, we'll look at that.
Yeah.
We're good right now, but when a guy tells you 2 or 3 years and we're just
yeah, let's,
plussing
I'd
it,
always rather plan for it than get
that's
whacked
what I
upside
wanted
of
to
the
let you
head.
guys know now.
Yeah,
Yeah. and,
Okay.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Thank you. It's just a love fest.
All right, highway. Let's see. Well, if you'll hold the microphone, you can, they just wanted us to do it so that people could hear.
Can you kind of lead me through like you did last year?
Sure, sure. Let's, get to the right tab here. 14.
MVH.
So we got several budgets. Typically, you know, yours are very straightforward. Rick's got great cash balances in all of these funds. So it's less of a comparison maybe year over year because we know that if it's higher than another year, he's got the money to back it up. But starting with the MVH restricted, which would be 1173. And that's all, it's restricted, it's all personnel. I take that back. There is one item at the very end, it's the bituminous for $500,000. Really not much to talk about there unless you want to make a comment about any personnel changes or anything that you did outside of the 10%.
No, we
Okay.
just, we still need to.
So
we
this
had a
is
guy
where the
quit,
salaries
still
are
need to hire
split
somebody.
Yeah,
50-50,
I wanted
aren't
to say
they?
that for Joe. The salaries are split.
Yeah, salaries.
Yeah.
They're split 50-50 between MVH restricted and MVH. That
I
makes
had-
it,
Hard to compare.
well, I assume that everything was mathematically correct.
Yeah, yeah.
10%
Yes.
raises.
Right, and we had 3 people, and we was paying out of the bridge fund, we put them back in the 1173.
Okay. That's probably good. We
That
need
gives us a
to,
little bit more money in the bridge fund.
right. Okay. 1176, MVH maintenance and repair.
You got it.
So again, mostly personnel. We get to the end, we've got some grader blades, clothing allowance, is the only thing outside of the personnel in that one as well. Unless I'm missing something. I think that's right.
We raised the clothing allowance for people, because we haven't done it since we started it.
Okay. How long has that been?
I have no idea.
A long time?
Kevin did it probably 20 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, I think costs have gone up. On the 1176, the highway administration portion of the budget, now we get into some more of the other items, the social security, the retirement, the group health. And this gets into more of the operational costs. Anything in there, Rick, that requires any kind of explanation, or it's got the insurance, the repairs, the supplies, all looks pretty straightforward.
It costs us more and more to work on these trucks, so that pollution stuff is just killing us.
Okay.
I have, Rick, I have on the form in 01014, that person, that person's been shortchanged a little bit with that 54,176. That should be 55,217.80. Just, throwing that out there.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, good catch.
we could have kept that $1,100, but. 55,217.80.
On the 010014? The
Yeah,
form-
218, yeah, right, okay.
Two foremans are different? Is that what you're saying?
Well, there's only one foreman in this budget, but it's not at the 10%.
One foreman is also my ERC. That's the reason I pay him a little more.
Well, this one was paid, wasn't even making the 10% ask.
Which one?
It's a.
Shop?
Number 14.
Oh, 14.
14.
It should say 55,218 instead of 54,176.
Do you have two foremans, is one in one budget? One in
They
another?
they must be. I didn't,
One is, gets that extra stipend doing the computer work, right?
yeah. So that's,
Greg?
yeah, and that's,
That looks right to me.
Last year, they had the shop foremans, they were giving him what we wanted to give the ERC. So we're
Yes.
not paying the shop foreman. We didn't pay him this year what is in there because he just got, what was it, 4 we got last year?
yeah, the person.
Okay, so this 54,176 is 10% of what he is
Okay, good.
He's
receiving
actually
this
getting.
year.
Very good,
Yeah.
very
Okay,
good. Thank
okay,
you.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
Okay. 1176 staying there, but now we're to the general and undistributed, the next page. It's got our gas, lube, and oil that's up. Garage and motor supplies. Nothing in there really jumps out. It's-
Rick, what is the, what is the 03-001, the snow removal? That's $6,000? I mean,
What do we pay for snow removal?
yeah, I mean, you guys are in the snow removal business. It says snow removal, $6,000.
I think that's for the courthouse parking lot, the contractor.
Oh, very good.
Isn't that right? Yeah.
And we get reimbursed for part of that anyway, don't we? Half of that, yeah.
Okay, great.
Contract's kind of up in the air, but it's supposed to be half. And I don't know if we've got it or not.
Okay, that's coming out of that.
Yeah, I think we have, because I remember getting it, yeah. Okay. One other thing I guess I would note, this budget's a little unique on the revenue side because it's funded primarily through gas taxes. And with the price of gas going up, gas tax revenues have gone up. And so looking strictly at what he spent last year versus this year is only telling half the story. He has more money to spend based on the increased revenues as well, so. Local road and street, actually a little bit lower than last year, because last year we had those 2 maintainers that we purchased. And then Rick referenced the bridge fund. We moved, and you can see that at the top, we moved those salaries out of the bridge fund to allow more money to accumulate for the actual bridge work. And and I want to, maybe I'll say it, Rick, for the benefit of the full council, because I'm not sure they know this, but, for a long time, we've carried a $500,000 CD that's been specific to the bridge fund. And Rick did, when that came up for renewal, we put $250,000 back in a CD and put $250,000 into the bridge fund to, again, augment the cash balance that we had, because we've got quite an inventory of bridges that need work. And so, that helped boost that cash balance there to repair some more bridges.
Gotcha.
So we talked, are you on local road and street?
I switched, I went
Oh,
past that
we
one to
talked about
King
the
Bridge.
patch-
Did you miss
patch
that?
truck?
No, I didn't. I missed that.
70,000. Patch truck.
Okay. The patch truck, Rick, is that just carrying the materials, or is that a tool that actually does the patch? Is that like a patching tool?
No, it's just a 1-ton dump truck.
Okay. Yeah. And then last, I believe it's last, is the wheel tax surtax. This is the road revenue that we raise locally here through the wheel tax. And we budget everything that we project to get, primarily for materials. It's always historically been the stone, oil, and bituminous. That budget's very consistent year over year. Any questions? Anything that you feel like you want us to know or understand or thinking that?
Added a budget for community crossings.
We don't have anything budgeted?
We added one.
Oh, we added one, okay.
Yeah, I think it's 300,000.
And that's a good idea. We've typically done that kind of retroactively. We waited until we got the award and then we budgeted through additional appropriation what our match was, but we've gotten that award several consecutive years, and so it did feel like it was to the point in time we should go ahead and just budget for it to begin with, rather than coming back later.
And where's that budgeted at?
Do you remember which one that was in, Rick? Yep, right at the top line of the first page there, I believe. But I don't, let's see, that doesn't have anything in the request. That has last year's, or the 2021, and the 2022.
I don't remember that, that's not like a fund of its own.
Hmm?
Is he saying that they created one? I don't think we have that.
Well, we always have to budget out of our cash balance the county match.